Now, some of you may be wondering, what do you mean all parts? Isn't there going to be a part 10? Well, as I posted on my community tab, I'm not going to be doing part 10. I don't want to read the Boruto manga at the moment. I have other things I want to do, and I have other installments I would like to do. So, you know what, rather than just tell you guys part 10 is never coming out, and nothing Kakashi adopted Naruto related comes out, I decided to do one last video and make it a movie and a compilation of all the parts. I don't think you guys understand how grateful I am for this series, and it sucks that it has come to an end, but honestly, this series is the reason why I'm even here today and why I'm still standing making different type of content other than just what ifs. This series helped me pop the fuck off, and we're gonna keep popping the fuck off, boys. We're getting that 50K by 2021. I didn't mean to just exclude just boys, boys and girls, you know what I mean? All I can really say is thanks, and, if this is the least I can do, then, I'm gonna make a compilation of all the parts. Thanks again, guys. This series has been one hell of a ride, and let's get right into the movie. Hope you guys enjoy. Now to start off, we will say that Kakashi is with Minato when Naruto was born just because Minato wanted Kakashi there, as he is his only student after all. Anyways, Kakashi and Kushina and Minato would suddenly see a man in a yellow mask rushing at the newly born Naruto. However, Minato blitzes this man and saves Naruto. Minato would then give Naruto to Kakashi and puts a seal on Kakashi just in case if he gets into any trouble. Kakashi begins to run until he sees a paper bomb tag on Naruto. Minato quickly reacts to this and takes off Naruto's blanket and quickly teleports Kakashi and Naruto away. At that point, the Biju would be extracted, and Minato would quickly rush to Kushina and teleports her himself, Kakashi, and Naruto to where a bed is. He places Kushina and Naruto there, and he would then put on his Hokage uniform, saying that he'll be back soon. Kakashi would then lift up his headband, and Minato and Kakashi would go out to stop this masked man. Kurama would unleash hell on the village and completely destroy it. Minato then teleports away the Biju bomb, with Kakashi simply right below Minato. At that point, the masked man would try and sneak up on Minato, but before Minato even reacts to it himself, Kakashi quickly rushes at the masked man's blind side and lands a blow on him. He sends the masked man flying to some rocks, but he recovers. At that point, Kakashi would try and cover Minato as Minato would fight the masked man, and like in the original, he would successfully land the flying Raijin level 2. The masked man would then retreat, and now Minato and Kakashi had to try and deal with the Nine Tails. Like in the original, Kushina and Minato would go through with the Nine Tails being sealed inside of Naruto, and with the death of Kakashi's mentor in Kushina, he would then activate his Mangekyo Sharingan out of rage. He has nothing left in this world, nothing except for that baby Minato and Kushina left behind. Kakashi now has a mission, and that mission is to raise Naruto to become as strong as he can to protect him from shinobi who might want the Nine Tails. Hiruzen along with other Leaf Ninja would then arrive to Kakashi, and Kakashi would then explain to him what happened without leaving a single detail. This includes the stuff with Kakashi actually wanting to raise Naruto since he was the last thing Minato left behind. Hiruzen would let Kakashi raise him since it would be good for Naruto to learn from a shinobi like Kakashi if he's going to defend himself against people who want the Nine Tails. So, when the elders of the Leaf try and see who will raise Naruto, Hiruzen recommends Kakashi and convinces the elders that Kakashi should be Naruto's father. Now, around this point in the story, Kakashi is currently pushing himself even harder to train to ensure Naruto's safety. He does provide Naruto hospitality and make sure he is provided with basic needs, and make sure when Naruto is at the right age, he will train him. Naruto during his early days would look up to Kakashi and would want to be just like him, because every time he's out with Kakashi in the village, everyone would look at Kakashi with such amazement, while everyone would look at Naruto with such revolting looks. Naruto one day would ask Kakashi, why is this the case? Kakashi would then look at Naruto, and in the back of his head, he saddened to hear this, and he would understand that hiding the truth isn't going to make him feel better. And Kakashi, being the decent human being he is, he would tell Naruto about his past and the 4th Hokage sacrificing himself as well. Kakashi believes telling Naruto about Minato being his dad isn't really the right time right now because Naruto is just a little boy. Maybe when Naruto is older and when he is a strong and capable shinobi, Kakashi will one day tell him. Naruto, after consuming this info, would decide to set a goal, and that goal is to become a Hokage and lead the village even better than the 4th. Naruto thinks that the 4th Hokage sacrificing himself for his own survival is something that the 4th didn't do by accident. He set expectations for Naruto, and Naruto's going to try his best and train hard and surpass those expectations. Kakashi would even tell Naruto about his techniques like the Rasengan, and Kakashi would actually show him what the Rasengan is, saying to Naruto that someday he will learn this jutsu. Also, Naruto, now knowing there's a demon fox inside of him and everyone hates him for it, decides to use this as even more motivation to become Hokage. He's going to show those people who's boss, and eventually those people wouldn't fear him or discuss him, but rather look up to him. Naruto would say his goals to Kakashi. Kakashi, hearing this, would say in the back of his head how he is just like a combination of Kushina and Minato. At around this point, Kakashi would then think it is time for Naruto to train, and Kakashi would then say to Naruto that if he's going to become the very best, he better start training. Now Naruto would say that he will train, and so Kakashi would say to Naruto that they could train for about 6 months, since Naruto has about 6 months until he can enroll into the academy. Now Naruto as a little child wouldn't be skilled in anything since he is just little after all, but Kakashi would promise Naruto and himself that he will get Naruto in shape. So Kakashi is showing Naruto the basics of ninjutsu and taijutsu and genjutsu. Kakashi notices that Naruto just simply can't use genjutsu very well. Naruto does actually have a lot of chakra, and Kakashi does take note of that. However, Naruto can't control it to really perform any kind of ninjutsu. He does have average taijutsu, however. Kakashi believes that the best way Naruto can utilize this chakra is for him to basically undergo chakra control. And so Naruto would basically learn how to control his chakra, and he wouldn't get the full grasp of it. However, he's able to pull a little bit of his own chakra and control and utilize it. And so Kakashi would then teach Naruto about the basic nature releases and chakra natures. And just like in the Kakuzu arc, when he was training for the Rasen Shuriken, he would discover that he's actually capable of utilizing wind style. Now, something I would actually like to mention is during Kakashi and Naruto's training, Hinata was watching the two train, and Kakashi, being a high-level shinobi, would notice this and eventually confront Hinata herself. She gets very nervous and says sorry, but Naruto then runs over and says no need to apologize, but he is curious as to why she does watch him train. Hinata would then open up to Naruto and says how she wants to be strong like Naruto because she doesn't want to be weak. Naruto would smile and say to Hinata that she can become strong like him easily, even stronger. She just has to put her mind into it. Kakashi would suggest for Hinata to maybe train with him whenever she stops by again. Hinata would say that's fine, and Naruto would say for Kakashi to maybe take a break and that he can train with Hinata right now. Kakashi would comply, and Naruto and Hinata that day would focus on training together. So now for the most part of Naruto's training, Hinata is there to train with him and is also training with Kakashi. Now Hinata would actually also discover a little bit of basic chakra control as well and learn how to activate her Byakugan. Her fighting style and raw technique would also be perfected thanks to Kakashi always training with her. Before we get into the Mizuki situation, I'm actually going to go over briefly about Naruto himself. So Naruto is actually wearing white instead of orange, since I believe it's actually pretty fitting since Kakashi has white hair. He also has techniques like the wind style Gale Palm and the sexy jutsu, along with the violent whirlwind / Gale Fan jutsu. The Gale Fan jutsu is used to dispel shadow clones with the use of wind, and the Gale Palm jutsu is actually used by Boruto and Nagato. Naruto uses this in combination with his taijutsu. Whenever he strikes an opponent, he then casts a wind style Gale Palm, which will send his opponents flying. It basically is a beta version of the Rasengan. Anyways, like in the original, Naruto would eventually come across Mizuki, and nothing really changes with that arc. Naruto would still be tricked due to him being gullible and would learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu and graduate the school year. The only difference being that Naruto already knows about the Nine Tails. Now Naruto in this timeline kinda likes Hinata and isn't really having eyes on anyone else right now, so he doesn't try and hit on Sakura. So this gives Sakura a reason not to really hate Naruto. She just kinda hates him pretty much the same reason why everyone else hates him, due to the Nine-Tailed Fox. She also mainly hated Naruto for him being very obnoxious and annoying, and this Naruto has actually been taught manners by Kakashi, so he isn't really annoying. Naruto's actually pretty likable. Naruto currently in the class is talking with Hinata and would actually briefly look at Sasuke. Sasuke would also look back, and Sasuke would actually stare back with some attitude. He would then call out for Naruto, "What are you looking at, loser?" And Naruto would then just go back to minding his own business. Naruto decides to keep to his own right now. This Uchiha guy actually piques a lot of interest to Naruto, because his dad actually utilizes the Sharingan, and Naruto knows this. So, an Uchiha being around, it's actually pretty interesting for Naruto at least. Anyways, at around this point, the teams then formed. Team Kakashi would be composed of Sasuke, Naruto, and Hinata. Team Asuma would be composed of Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji, and Team Kurona would be composed of Kiba, Shino, and Sakura. The reason why I put Naruto and Hinata on a team is because Naruto and Hinata already have a bond going, and both of them have trained with Kakashi before. I believe it would be cool to have Hinata on the team, not to mention they both already know their instructor well, that being Kakashi. Anyways, we would then cut to when they have to meet for the instructor, and Naruto wouldn't put that little prank up for Kakashi, and Hinata is in Sakura's place. Kakashi would get the goals of everyone, and Sasuke and Naruto's goals are the same, and Hinata wouldn't have the same goal as Sakura. Her goals are simply to become a strong and capable kunoichi to protect the one she loves. Kakashi would then tell Team 7 to report to the field tomorrow and to not eat breakfast. Anyways, Team 7 would then disband and Kakashi and Naruto would go home. Before they go to sleep, Naruto would say how he's gonna show off in the exam tomorrow and he's gonna impress his dad. Kakashi would smirk and he would say goodnight Naruto as Naruto proceeds to head to bed. And Kakashi would then proceed to get to bed as well. A couple hours later, and Kakashi would be currently having a nightmare. He's thinking about that one night where he declared that he will train Naruto and raise him. It was also the same night where Minato and Kushina had died. He would see it all over again, their bodies and blood all over the floor, and he would also see the masked man. It was also the same night where Minato and Kushina had died. He would see their bodies and blood all over the floor, and he would also see the masked man. It's almost as if the masked man was in his nightmare, just looking at him and laughing at him and just watching him over all these years. He would just try and let go and try and wake himself up, but he just can't snap out of it. Eventually, he would then snap out of it and scream out loud. Naruto would be knocked out, so he wouldn't be able to hear Kakashi. Kakashi would then run to the bathroom to immediately wash his eyes, and then when he looked at himself in the mirror, he would then see a Mangekyo Sharingan in his eye. It had appeared due to this nightmare that Kakashi was having. His eye began to alter its form and form into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Anyways, Kakashi's eye begins to slowly alter its form back into its three-tomo state, and Kakashi would be shocked because he's actually discovered this power before, back when Minato had died. Anyways, Kakashi would then go back to sleep, and the sun would rise and Naruto would wake up and realize that it's very early, and he would try and attempt to wake up Kakashi, but when he arrives to his room, he notices Kakashi not being there. Naruto would actually be confused at first, but then he would just think of it as Kakashi probably had to do an early job or something. Anyways, like in the original, Naruto would proceed to meet up with Team 7, and they would actually have to wait for Kakashi in order to do their bell test, and Naruto is questioning Kakashi what is taking him so long. Speaking of Kakashi, we would actually then cut back to his perspective, and he is currently walking back to the village after doing a mission. Kakashi, as he's walking back, just keeps on thinking back to that night when Minato had died and the masked man showed up. He can't just get these thoughts out of his head so easily. He tries to clear his head, but he just can't. He just keeps on going back to Minato's death and the masked man, and he wonders who this masked man even is. However, Kakashi, as he proceeds to walk back to the village, he would just clear his head, and it would actually work this time. He actually was able to get his mind off of things, and he would then proceed to walk to the third Hokage's office, reporting that the mission was a great success, and he would then proceed to go to the field where he is supposed to meet with Team 7. After Kakashi would then say that he got lost on the path of life, he would then proceed to explain to them the bell test rules, and in this timeline, Naruto doesn't actually try to attack Kakashi before he even starts it. Anyways, the bell test would begin, and we can already see differences from the original. For example, Naruto would actually go in and fight Kakashi first like in the original, but he actually does a lot better, even better than Sasuke in the canon timeline. Naruto would attempt to use shadow clones to basically overwhelm Kakashi, but during that time, Naruto would also try and use his shuriken jutsu in combination with the wind style gale palm to basically make Kakashi fall back. So it's basically a shadow clone gangbang against Kakashi. Now this plan almost works until Kakashi decides to go underground to dodge the wind in hand shuriken rather than moving back. This would actually off guard Naruto, and the real Naruto would actually be caught lacking by Kakashi, and Kakashi would then grab Naruto by the feet, and like in the original, like how he did with Sasuke, would leave Naruto in the ground. Kakashi would then proceed to congratulate Naruto on actually doing very well. He actually did way better than he would expect, but it's still not enough. Anyways, that Naruto would then smirk and then disappear, and then would just leave a trail of smoke. It was a shadow clone. Kakashi is confused, and we would then cut to the real Naruto who's actually running away. He's currently trying to find where his teammates are hiding, and he would eventually come across Hinata, and he would then eventually come across Sasuke. And so the three of them then attempt to try and form a plan to maybe catch Kakashi off guard. Speaking of Kakashi, Kakashi is currently just reading his Makeout Paradise and is awaiting Team 7 to try and strike him or maybe take the bells away from him already. Then all of a sudden, Sasuke and Naruto would appear face to face with Kakashi, and Kakashi questions them where is Hinata, and Naruto and Sasuke then proceed to say don't worry about it. Kakashi is confused at this at first, but Sasuke and Naruto then just try and attempt to take the bells away from Kakashi, charging at him with everything that they got. Naruto and Sasuke would proceed to try and get into a taijutsu battle with Kakashi, but Kakashi is handling both of them at the same time, and they know taijutsu won't cut it. Naruto then proceeds to cast a Gale Palm Jutsu, as Sasuke would then proceed to cast the Signs of the Fireball Jutsu. And when Sasuke actually uses the Fireball Jutsu and the Fireball is currently being shot at Kakashi, Naruto would use the Gale Palm on the Fireball to enhance the Fireball. And so it would be a Wind Enhanced Fireball Jutsu. And so Kakashi is actually caught by surprise by this and decides to use a Earth-style mud wall to try and block the Fireball, and it successfully works. As this happens, Naruto and Sasuke proceed to dash past the wall, trying to intercept Kakashi from the sides. However, Kakashi would proceed to jump into the air to dodge both Naruto and Sasuke. They both then proceed to say now, as two clones of Naruto and Hinata come from their hiding spots, and the two Naruto clones both cast a wind-style Gale Palm to propel Hinata into the air, and Hinata would beam at Kakashi. Hinata for Kakashi would just be a blur, and Kakashi would be caught by a barrage of Hinata's palm strikes, which would shut down some of his chakra points. Both Kakashi and Hinata both fall back to the ground, but both of them catch themselves in the process. As Kakashi falls to the ground, Hinata, along with Sasuke and Naruto, would charge at Kakashi. Before Kakashi could try and attempt to dodge, Hinata would strike Kakashi's leg, shutting down his chakra points, which means he is unable to move. And so Sasuke and Naruto proceed to take the two bells, and Team 7 passes the bell test. Kakashi would then congratulate Team 7, and he would then say that they're going to be doing a couple of D rank / low ranking missions, not really C rank or above, till they basically are ready for a C rank or a higher level of missions. So they're basically going to train while doing missions, and I feel like having them train actually makes sense, since Hinata and Naruto have actually trained with Kakashi before, and since Sasuke is an Uchiha and Kakashi also has a Sharingan, and Naruto knows this, Naruto would probably suggest Kakashi to train Sasuke, and so Sasuke, Naruto, and Hinata would train with Kakashi over the course of the 1 month. And the reason I said 1 month, in case you guys didn't know, is because there's actually a 1 month gap between the after the bell test and right before the Land of Waves. So without further ado, let's get into the 1 month training arc. Now Team 7 during their 1 month of training would know about Kakashi's Sharingan, and Sasuke would ask Kakashi personally to help him achieve this. Now during the 1 month, I believe since Naruto and Hinata and Sasuke would train a lot during this 1 month gap, it wouldn't be impossible to say that Team 7 do the water walking and true walking exercises. So I'm going to say that they're actually going to get that out of the way before the Land of Waves arc even begins. Now eventually, due to his intense training, Sasuke would actually unlock his one Tomo Sharingan, and Sasuke and Naruto would probably become rivals over the course of this 1 month, since they're actually rivaling each other and always sparring every single day. Meanwhile, Hinata would further hone her skills in her Byakugan and actually unlock her nature release, which is lightning. She's actually learning to adapt her gentle fist and her palm strike and overall her taijutsu skills in combination with her lightning technique, which you guys will know on later in Shippuden that she actually has this technique called the gentle step twin lion fist. So she's actually going to start learning this a little bit earlier. She's in the stages of learning it. Now, as for this version of Naruto, what would he learn over the course of the 1 month gap? Well, he's currently learning the fundamentals of the Rasengan thanks to Kakashi. Keep in mind that Kakashi actually knows the Rasengan and knows how to form one, so I'm just going to say that Kakashi knows the steps to learning it, since, well, how would he form one if he didn't know how to utilize it or learn how to form it? So yeah, for the sake of the what if, we're going to say that Kakashi knows the fundamentals of it, and so Naruto is currently undergoing the process of learning the Rasengan. And keep in mind, in the original, he actually learned the Rasengan in 1 week, and keep in mind that this Naruto has 1 month of training. So yeah, this Naruto is able to utilize the Rasengan similar to how he's able to utilize it in canon. He needs a shadow clone to help him rotate his chakra, and so the Rasengan can be fully formed. Now, Naruto would usually probably ask Kakashi after Sasuke and Hinata train with them, and so Naruto could try and learn the Rasengan in secret, so Sasuke wouldn't know about it, so maybe Naruto can use it on him in some future spar, but Kakashi tells him to not use it. Kakashi would then explain to Naruto why he's not able to use it, and the reason why is because, well, if he hits Sasuke with that jutsu, especially a fully formed Rasengan to the face or stomach, whatever, it will kill Sasuke, or at least heavily damage him. Kakashi would then say Naruto can only use his jutsu on enemies, and he should only use it as a last resort, because he doesn't always have to resort to killing. It's only up to Naruto, and Naruto would then say, alright Kakashi, fine. And so Naruto is not going to reveal the jutsu to Sasuke or Hinata, or at least not to Hinata yet, because he wants to show it off in a very cool fashion to maybe impress Hinata, since, you know, in this timeline Naruto kind of likes Hinata. Anyways, this would conclude the 1 month training gap, and we can now move on to the Land of Waves saga. Now, like in the original, Naruto would request for a higher rank mission, and so the third Hokage would give him a C rank mission. Now the encounter with the Demon Brothers actually plays out differently here, since Naruto's actually a lot stronger. He's not shook about some two fodder ass Chunin, and since he's actually stronger than Sasuke in this timeline, Sasuke is actually a lot stronger as well. They're currently relative, but Naruto's currently above canon Sasuke. He would completely fondle the twin Demon Brothers with Sasuke, and he knows that Kakashi isn't actually dead because he kind of figured it out. He knew that his dad wasn't going to lose to some fodder ninja like that. And like in the original, they would find out that it's not actually a C rank mission, and Tazuna lied. Also, we wouldn't get that speech about Naruto since he wouldn't necessarily stab himself, since he wouldn't be poisoned in the first place. And so Team 7 would really just be walking until they encounter Zabuza, and like in the original, Kakashi would then proceed to say how he won't let his comrades die, and Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke are currently protecting Tazuna as best as they can while Kakashi deals with Zabuza. Now when Zabuza and Kakashi both begin their fight, like in the original, he would cast his hidden mist jutsu, and Hinata and Sasuke would actually react to this by activating their dojutsu, Hinata activating her Byakugan, and Sasuke activating his Sharingan. When Zabuza tries to attempt to basically go to Tazuna, Sasuke and Hinata are able to perceive this, but Kakashi would quickly blitz to their aid, and this would actually give Zabuza the advantage because Kakashi is always relying on trying to defend his comrades, and so Zabuza decides to use this to his advantage. He actually makes Kakashi think he's going to try and kill his teammates, and so when Kakashi tries to rush in, Zabuza would sneak attack him, kick him away. He would kick him away into a nearby body of water, and Zabuza would proceed to blitz over to Kakashi and cast the water prison jutsu, trapping Kakashi, and now Team 7 have to deal with the Zabuza water clone. This clone of Zabuza would attempt to actually rush at Tazuna, but when Sasuke, Hinata, and Naruto attempt to try and protect Tazuna, Zabuza actually reveals that this was just a fluke for him to get the upper hand on them, and he would proceed to bully Sasuke, kick him away. He would then slam Hinata into the ground, and he would headbutt Naruto away. Sasuke's vision begins to fade, Hinata is almost out of commission, and Naruto is heavily damaged, but he is mostly pissed off more than anything. And so Naruto would attempt to try and rush at Zabuza before Zabuza would just kick away Naruto. It's just overall a stomp in Zabuza's favor, and when Naruto's nearly out cold and Hinata's on the ground, Sasuke tries his best to try and combat Zabuza with his one-tomo Sharingan, but even Kakashi is actually overwhelmed by Zabuza, so Sasuke is even just at a bigger disadvantage. Even though this is only Zabuza's water clone, not the full power of Zabuza, this clone just completely bullies and dominates Sasuke in a fight, and so Sasuke is then rendered out of commission, and Hinata and Naruto try their best to try and combat Zabuza. Zabuza would then proceed to cast the hand signs of the water-style water dragon jutsu. Kakashi is shocked, and he would then say to Zabuza that these guys are just getting, and that if they get hit by this jutsu, they will be dead. And so Zabuza would smirk, and he would proceed to finish off the hand signs, and then he would then scream out water-style water dragon bullet jutsu, and then the water dragon would then come out rising and rushing at Hinata and Naruto. Hinata then proceeds to try and dodge, but before that happens, she notices that Naruto's actually in trouble, and so she pushes Naruto out of the way, getting hit by the water dragon. And so after the water is cleared, Kakashi would then see Hinata's body on the ground, and Naruto would also see this. Naruto would then rush to her aid, making sure that she is okay, but Hinata currently is brutally beaten. She is on the brink of death, and her vision is fading fast. Naruto then tells Hinata that it's going to be okay, and that maybe they can think of something, but Hinata knows, and Naruto also knows just a little bit, that it's kinda too late. Right before Hinata's vision fades, she would then say, "Naruto, don't ever stop your goals of becoming Hokage. You have such a beautiful dream. You have motivated me to become a strong and capable kunoichi, and I'm sad that our journey didn't last as long as it did. Naruto, I love you." Hinata's vision would then fade, and Naruto wouldn't feel a pulse. Hinata is seemingly dead. Naruto would then stand up, and he would then say, "I'll do it for you. I promise." Zabuza would then proceed to speak and say to Naruto that having love in the shinobi world isn't worth it when everyone dies. It's just a constant cycle of hell, and people like Naruto have potential, but they can't unleash their full potential if they have such petty attachments like that. Naruto wouldn't respond in words. The only response he has to this is powering up and activating his one-tailed cloak for the very first time. As this happens, Kakashi would see Hinata fall, and him seeing his student seemingly die would enrage him. Kakashi would then activate his Mangekyo once again. However, this time, he then proceeds to warp away Zabuza's water prison, which would also mean part of Zabuza's arm is gone, or mostly his hand. Zabuza is shocked to see this, but before he can try anything, Kakashi would kick Zabuza away. However, before Zabuza successfully falls to the ground, Haku would come in and save him, and so Zabuza would then say to Haku that they should retreat, but before they can even do anything, Naruto would already form a Rasengan and already beam at the two. Now what would happen is Haku would actually stop Naruto's attack and kick him away, but since Haku's already distracted with Naruto, Kakashi would have enough time to form a Raikiri and successfully beam at Zabuza and pierce him in the chest. Zabuza is down for the count. Kakashi would then proceed to pull his arm back, and so Zabuza's body would then fall to the ground. Haku, seeing Zabuza's body like that, is just completely shocked. Haku would then tell Naruto to basically finish him off because he has no other purpose. Since Naruto is already driven by the Kyuubi Chakra Naruto doesn't really have any sense, so he's just gonna form a Vermilion Rasengan and shove it at Haku's face, completely killing him. So Zabuza and Haku are no longer threats, and with the threat out of the way, Kakashi and Naruto would both fall to the ground due to exhaustion, and then they would eventually wake up to Sasuke, Hinata, and Tazuna, and they are in a random house. They would then explain that they're actually at Tazuna's house, and Sasuke woke up first, and he carried Hinata while Tazuna carried Naruto and Kakashi. Naruto, seeing Hinata for the very first time ever since the Zabuza fight, is shocked and happy that she is alive, and he would then proceed to kiss her on the forehead, saying that he did remember what she said to him during the Zabuza fight, and that maybe they can go pick up some Ichiraku ramen after this mission is over. Hinata would just be completely red and she would just pass out. They would then laugh a little bit, and Kakashi is surprised that Naruto's game is on point. Anyways, they would then await for Kakashi and Naruto's injuries to recover along with Hinata's, and they would eventually arrive at where Tazuna is supposed to build the bridge. However, they would actually encounter Gato and his men. Gato would then explain to Team 7 that he never got a response from Haku and Zabuza, and they're both worthless, so he's gonna have to do everything by himself and stop them from building the bridge. Naruto, hearing this, is actually enraged by this, since Gato basically caused Hinata's near-death experience. So Naruto then proceeds to form multiple Shadow Clones, along with Hinata activating her Byakugan, and Sasuke and Kakashi activating their Sharingan. With all of them combined, they would completely wash all of Gato's men, and out of fear for his life, Gato would just jump off into the ocean, and he would never try and mess with anyone again. And so the threat of Gato is done, along with Zabuza and Haku, keep that in mind. And so they would then await for the bridge to be finished, and that would conclude the Land of Waves arc. Well, since there's no threat of Gato, Zabuza, and Haku, Tazuna has more time to build the bridge, so there's actually no threats to deal with. So yeah, this would be the very conclusion of the Land of Waves arc, thanks to Tazuna having more time to build the bridge, and he would eventually build it. Now, start this part off with Kakashi and Sasuke training in the field, and the reason why is because Sasuke wanted to grow stronger. Since the last mission, he was dealt with pretty easily. He wants to improve and show Naruto who's really on top. While that's going on, Naruto and Hinata are currently hanging out, and they would encounter the Sand Trio composed of Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro. It would just be Hinata and Naruto, unlike the canon counterpart where it was Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura. Eventually, after this encounter, Kakashi would then tell Team 7 to meet up, and eventually Team 7 would meet up once again, and Kakashi would then tell him about the Chunin exams. And Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata believe that they're ready for the Chunin exams, and like in canon, Kakashi would test to see if they're all ready, and the 3 members of Team 7 would pass through Kakashi's trial. Now Team 7 is ready for the Chunin exams, and we would cut to Team 7 arriving at the check-in center, and we would also see Team 7 encountering Team Guy for the first time, and Neji, seeing Hinata for the first time, would just talk some trash. Naruto would actually hear and witness Neji's trash talking on Hinata, and Naruto would then come to her defense, and he would then say, "Watch who you're talking to." And Neji would then get in a fighting stance, and he would then say, "Oh, what are you gonna do about it? You're gonna hit me?" And Naruto would then get in a fighting stance himself, and he would then say, "Actually, yeah, I am going to do that." And right as Naruto gets ready to charge and Neji gets ready to defend himself, Rock Lee would then intercept the both of them and tells them both to knock it off. At that point, Naruto is kind of confused, and Neji just smirks, and he would then say, "Back off, kid. I'll deal with you later in the Chunin exams. Hell, you might not even make it through the first round." Naruto would then look at Neji, and he would then say, "Oh, we'll see about that." And so Team 7 goes in to try and check in, and like in the original, Rock Lee would actually stop them from checking in. And Rock Lee sees how Naruto is confident he can beat Neji, and Rock Lee believes he and Naruto shall fight to determine who's going to defeat Neji and who is truly Neji's rival. Rock Lee versus Naruto goes somewhat similar to that of Sasuke versus Lee. However, Naruto would have been slightly above that of canon Sasuke, and I can see Naruto being able to block 2 or 3 attacks from Rock Lee before getting launched into the air, and Rock Lee would attempt to use the first gate, but Might Guy stops Lee, and Naruto knows that he's going to have to get a lot stronger if he's going to want to beat Lee, Neji, and even that Gaara guy he met not too long ago. Anyways, Team 7 would proceed to trial through the first round of the Chunin exams like in canon, because I don't see too many differences in the first round, so Team 7 still passes through it pretty easily, and well, we can now move on to the Forest of Death. Now, I believe the things that would actually change is specifically when Orochimaru arrives. Now, I say this because Naruto would still not remember the password because he would still be that type to not remember things, which leads into them encountering Orochimaru, and Naruto and Sasuke would have no other choice but to combat Orochimaru. Naruto will still get eaten by the snake, and while Naruto is still in the snake's stomach, Hinata would go into a blind rage and manage to strike Orochimaru a couple of times with her lightning-enhanced palm strikes. Team 7 knows they can't waste any time, and so Naruto would proceed to make a Rasengan. Keep in mind this is after the snake is completely exploded thanks to Naruto overstuffing it with shadow clones, so this is after this moment. So it would be Hinata getting into a blind rage, Naruto would then be revealed to be alive, and then now Naruto is making a Rasengan. Just to clarify for the viewers, because I know some of you guys tend to get confused. Anyways, as Naruto is forming his Rasengan, Hinata will then activate her Byakugan and utilize her lightning element into her palms and look at Naruto. And she would then say that together they can ensure Orochimaru's defeat, and Naruto agrees, and so Hinata would proceed to rotate Naruto's Rasengan with her lightning element, which allows them to make a lightning release Rasengan, or as they would call it, the Gentle Step Rasengan. Hinata and Naruto dash at Orochimaru at relative speeds, and to their surprise and to their rescue, Sasuke would arrive and is actually alive and well after being shook up about Orochimaru, and he would proceed to actually cover Naruto and Hinata with the Phoenix Flower Jutsu. So if Orochimaru tries to catch Naruto and Hinata from behind, he would meet a fireball to the face. And so Orochimaru would be caught off guard by Hinata and Naruto's sudden jump in speed and power, and this allows Hinata and Naruto to land their attack on Orochimaru, and Orochimaru would get sent flying and would take heavy damage, but another Orochimaru comes out of the fatigued Orochimaru's mouth and is back to full strength. Basically that weird thing that he does all the time. Anyways, Orochimaru would proceed to smile and say that he's impressed with the Hyuga and the Jinchuriki, but he's mostly craving for the Uchiha right now. However, he wouldn't leave Naruto empty-handed, and he would proceed to seal the Nine Tails like how he did in canon, and Naruto would be out of commission. Orochimaru would then proceed to blitz towards Sasuke, giving him the curse mark, and then Sasuke would then black out, and the only conscious member at this point is Hinata. Orochimaru would then retreat, and Hinata is the only one left to take care of the damage that Orochimaru has done to Team 7. Now, like in the original, only this time Hinata is replacing Sakura. The 3 Sound Ninja will then try and combat the alone Kunoichi, who's basically guarding her 2 down teammates. However, Rock Lee would then come to her rescue, and so Rock Lee and Hinata would then begin to work together to try and stop the 3 Sound Ninja. I will say, because Hinata is actually in this timeline and she's basically covering Rock Lee, I will say she's able to shut down the individual's chakra points, which allows Rock Lee to get a couple of good hits in, which then the 3 Sound Ninja would then attempt to try and retreat. However, Zaku specifically doesn't want to give up. However, around this point, Sasuke would then wake up and he would then proceed to obliterate Zaku. However, Hinata and Rock Lee would then tell Sasuke to snap out of it. Now, they wouldn't actually have the same touch as Sakura did in canon, because Hinata is actually Naruto's girl, not Sakura being, Sasuke's girl or future girl, and Sakura being someone who cares about Sasuke like that. Hinata doesn't necessarily think of Sasuke like that. So, Sasuke is still in his Curse Mark 1 state, and then he would proceed to dash towards base Rock Lee and actually get a punch in on him. Rock Lee would barely manage to block, but he would just get sent flying back into a tree, and he would proceed to open the first gate, and Rock Lee versus Sasuke would begin. Sasuke would jump into the air to get some distance in and cast his Phoenix Flower Jutsu, and while that happens, Rock Lee would proceed to dodge all the fireballs and would proceed to jump into the air, trying to dynamic entry Sasuke right into the stomach. Now, keep in mind the Curse Mark 1 stage is below the Curse Mark 2 stage, and the Curse Mark 2 stage is a 10 times multiplier, and we know that opening the gates is a dozens of times of a multiplier, stated by Kakashi himself, and so this means that one first gate guy would definitely obliterate Curse Mark 1 Sasuke. And so when Sasuke is actually tagged by Rock Lee's dynamic entry, he would get sent flying down into the ground, and he would revert back into his base form, and he would proceed to question what happened to himself. Hinata would then tell Sasuke that he went into some sort of a transformation, and whatever Sasuke went through, that was not the real Sasuke that Hinata knew, at least. And at around this point, Naruto would then wake up, and like in canon, they would encounter Kabuto and pass through the Forest of Death. Now, the reason why I say this is because I don't really see anything changing other than when Naruto wakes up, he would get the intel about what just happened when he was asleep due to Hinata, Rock Lee, and Sasuke, and then they would say goodbye to Rock Lee, and Rock Lee would hope for Team 7 to make it to the finals, and the Inoshika Cho trio wouldn't be introduced in the Chunin exams at this point in the story. So, basically, instead of getting that corny Sakura cutting her hair, we got a combination of Hinata and Rock Lee, and Sasuke versus Rock Lee, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, with that out of the way, we can finally get into the third round of the Chunin exams. So now we begin with the third round of the Chunin exams, and I'm going to keep the same matchups like in canon. So Naruto will fight Kiba, and Hinata will fight Neji, and Sasuke, Shino, Dosu, Shikamaru, Tamari, Lee, Sakura, and Ino would all have their fights like per normal. However, I do believe Naruto and Hinata would have different fights. We'll first go over Naruto and Kiba's fight. So starting off with Naruto and Kiba's fight, it's a lot more in Naruto's favor since Naruto is a lot faster and a lot more powerful in this timeline. So instead of literally shitting on Kiba to win, he obliterates him with a Rasengan to the dome, and it is Naruto's W. Now, as for Hinata and Neji's fight, Neji and Hinata would still go at it, but Hinata is actually relative to Neji in speed, thanks to her constant training with Kakashi and Naruto and Sasuke. Not to mention, she's able to use her lightning release in combination to her Hyuga style, Taijutsu, which allows her to paralyze Neji from time to time. However, Neji would eventually overcome Hinata by tapping into more of his hidden power, and humiliates her in front of everyone. Naruto would get mad and proceed to throw a Rasengan at Neji, and Neji would actually use his rotation to react to this, and his Rasengan and Neji's rotation would actually counteract each other. Naruto would then proceed to rush at Neji, and this time Kakashi would then intercept Naruto, telling Naruto to knock it off, and they need to make sure Hinata is alright right now. They don't care about this stupid blind rage or this grudge he has for Neji. Naruto needs to make sure Hinata is alright, and Naruto would then snap out of this blinding rage moment, and he would proceed to go to Hinata's aid, and at that point the medical team would then arrive, and then Hinata would be escorted into a medical center. Now, what would happen is the medical team would tell Naruto that he can't come along with them because they need to make sure Hinata is 100% alright and is going to be alive, and so Naruto and Kakashi are then just left there at the Chunin exam stage, confused. Now, they really don't know what to do, and at this point, Naruto and Kakashi would just witness the rest of the exams go on as per normal. For example, Rock Lee versus Gaara, and all that stuff would happen, and Naruto would then have 1 month to train for the final rounds of the Chunin exams. Now, there's one thing I actually didn't touch upon, and that was the Kakashi and Orochimaru encounter, and it actually does play out different. Now, instead of Kakashi just getting into a blind rage and saying to himself what is he thinking for standing up to Orochimaru, Kakashi in this timeline is actually confident thanks to him having early access to his Mangekyo Sharingan, and Orochimaru is actually intimidated by Kakashi's Mangekyo Sharingan, and Orochimaru decides to retreat, not specifically because he knows Sasuke will come back to him. He does know that Sasuke will eventually come back to Orochimaru. However, Orochimaru is also leaving out of fear for his life because the Mangekyo Sharingan is something only Itachi has used, and Orochimaru had some pretty bad encounters with Itachi himself. And so Orochimaru just dips, and so Kakashi then decides to suppress the curse mark, and he successfully does so, and like in canon, Sasuke is then being trained by Kakashi over the course of the 1 month gap between the final rounds of the Chunin exams. However, someone else would train with Kakashi as well, and that is Naruto himself. Now, Naruto isn't actually going to train with Kakashi for the full time before the Chunin exams. He's actually going to train with him for the same amount of time he trained with Ibisu. However, in this timeline, he's not training with Ibisu, but rather Kakashi. Now, during this time period, I'm actually going to say Naruto learns to discover a brand new element, and I actually put on the community tab, and thanks to you guys' votes, it's actually going to be lightning style. And so Naruto now knows a little bit of lightning style, and is actually trying to learn to combine it with his Rasengan and his wind style Rasengan. I'm also going to say that Naruto learns the wind style Rasengan while training with Kakashi and Sasuke. Now, we will say Naruto actually leads Kakashi and Sasuke's training because Kakashi just decided to focus more on Sharingan-based training, and since Naruto doesn't have a Sharingan, he's not going to benefit from this training, and so Naruto is currently looking for some training, and then he would eventually meet Jiraiya-sensei. And so Naruto and Jiraiya would eventually get along with each other very well, and Naruto and Jiraiya would slowly hit it off, and then Naruto, like in canon, would learn how to access some of the Kyuubi's chakra. He would also learn summoning jutsu, along with a brand new jutsu I actually came up with called the Ricochet Rasengan. And so Naruto would actually use his wind style Rasengan, and he's actually figured out over the course of training with Jiraiya a way to utilize lightning release within his wind style Rasengan, and he basically makes a lightning wind release Rasengan, which he calls it the Ricochet Rasengan, which is basically a wind style Rasengan with an electrical aura around it, which basically makes it like a darker blue kind of color, which is a lot more cooler than its original color. But anyways, we now are ready to go into the third round of the Chunin exams, or the finals of the Chunin exams. Let's begin the exam with round 1, Naruto versus Neji. Now, in this timeline, Naruto doesn't want to hold back and immediately taps into the power of the QB. Keep in mind that this Naruto has witnessed this Neji embarrass the girl that he actually likes, and Neji has actually just been taunting Naruto the entire course of the Chunin exams, and so he's not going to hold anything back, and so Naruto and Neji would just be scrapping. However, I believe this Naruto would attempt to summon a bunch of clones as a distraction to form his Ricochet Rasengan. And so, as the real Naruto is forming his Ricochet Rasengan, Neji would be scrapping with some of Naruto's clones and would be swiftly taking them down. However, when Neji doesn't even know it, Naruto would already speed towards Neji, and he would then slam a Ricochet Rasengan into his stomach, which knocks Neji out cold. Naruto has trialed through Neji, and he would then say how destiny is nothing compared to hard work, and destiny isn't really all that. Now, the other fights would go down like in canon. However, when Kabuto casts the feather illusion technique, Naruto is quickly saved by Kakashi, and Kakashi then tells Naruto to go and assist Sasuke. Naruto would do so and would catch up with Sasuke, which means Sasuke and Naruto would eventually fight Gaara. Now, Shino will still help out against Kankuro like in canon, but now Naruto and Sasuke are fighting in unison against Gaara. Now, Naruto taps into some of the Kyuubi's chakra and makes a wind release Rasengan, while Sasuke proceeds to make a Chidori, and the both of them attempt to combine the two attacks. And it actually works. Naruto and Sasuke would then off-guard Gaara with the sudden boost in speed and power, and then they would slam their combined Chidori and Rasengan attack into Gaara, and right after this, Sasuke follows up with the Lion's Barrage, and Naruto follows up with Sasuke's attack with the Uzumaki 2K Barrage. This does devastating damage to Gaara, and Gaara is pretty pissed, and he decides to transform into his Shukaku state out of sheer rage. Now, Naruto has no other choice but to summon Gamabunta, and after a couple of tries, it actually works, and so Gamabunta is then summoned, and Gamabunta then asks for Naruto what does he want, and Naruto would then say for Gamabunta to jump into the air and cast a water bullet jutsu, and so Gamabunta would then say, "Don't boss me around like that." Naruto gets confused because Gamabunta literally asked for what he wanted, but anyways, Gamabunta would then cast a water bullet jutsu. Naruto would then decide to use a Gale Palm Jutsu combined with a Lightning Release Jutsu, and so he would basically spread out a Gale Palm full of lightning, which would actually allow the water to conduct this lightning, and so it would just be a water ball surrounded in lightning armor. And when it actually hits Shukaku, this does devastating damage to him, because remember, Gaara's sand is actually weak to lightning, and so Shukaku's sand would be weak to lightning as well, and if we have a water bullet combined with lightning, it's just going to do devastating damage to Shukaku. Now, as Naruto beats Gaara, Naruto would proceed to Talk no Jutsu Gaara and humanize him, and at that point, the third Hokage would also die and would succumb to Orochimaru. Now, after this, the third Hokage would have a funeral and the Konoha ninja mourn, and this would wrap up the Chunin exams arc, and this would also set up the Tsunade Retrieval Arc, and Naruto going out to train with Jiraiya to learn a brand new jutsu. However, something different in this timeline would happen. Hinata, before Jiraiya and Naruto leave off, would actually ask Jiraiya and Naruto if she could come along with them, because Hinata doesn't really have anywhere to go and train. And plus, she would want to hang out with Naruto rather than Sasuke and Kakashi, because Sasuke and Kakashi are just mostly going to be training their Sharingan and honing their skills. She can't really do that with her Byakugan, and plus, she just wants to hang out with Naruto a lot more, since remember, Hinata kind of already established that she likes Naruto, and Naruto kind of likes her as well. So Naruto would actually tell Jiraiya that it wouldn't be a bad idea if she came along. But Jiraiya's a little bit iffy about it, because, you know, Jiraiya's always out on research, and so if a girl were to witness that, it would be kind of awkward. Now, I am actually going to leave this off to you guys. You guys decided that Hinata should come along, and so she would come along with Jiraiya and Naruto for the hunt of Tsunade, and like in canon, Naruto would actually be left in a hotel room. However, over the course of their journey before they get to the hotel room, Naruto wouldn't necessarily be training too much. If anything, Hinata's kind of working on her training and asking Jiraiya some tips and tricks and stuff like that. Reason why is because Naruto has already learned the Rasengan in this timeline a lot earlier than his canon counterpart, so the whole learning Rasengan training arc doesn't really need to go down for Naruto. Naruto's just kind of vibing. However, Hinata, I could see her having a little bit of a training arc and actually trying to tell Naruto that she wants to get stronger, because the Chunin exam she got completely embarrassed by Neji. Hinata would then say to Naruto and Jiraiya that she's just done being the girl without a backbone and is always getting embarrassed by. She wants to get stronger and wants to grow as a kunoichi. And Jiraiya actually sees this within Hinata, and Jiraiya could just see Hinata actually training with Tsunade. Well, potentially, if this all works out. And Jiraiya would then say to Hinata that he can actually recommend her to Tsunade herself if she actually manages to come with her and become the 5th Hokage and all of that. And Jiraiya could basically put her on into some new training, which could make Hinata a lot stronger. Hinata is excited for this, but she doesn't want to get her hopes up, and Naruto would then say, well, if the Tsunade thing doesn't work out, Naruto actually has a plan for Hinata. He would then say that he's going to help Hinata learn the Rasengan, and so Hinata's actually excited, and she would actually want to train with Naruto. But the thing is that when Naruto tries to explain the basics of the Rasengan to her, Naruto's not a very good teacher. And eventually Jiraiya would actually pick up on training with Hinata, and so Jiraiya would actually teach Hinata a lot better than what Naruto did, the fundamentals of the Rasengan. Now Jiraiya would only teach a little bit until he would actually get distracted and would actually want to go do more research, so then he would then book Naruto and Hinata a hotel, in which Naruto and Hinata are now in a hotel together. Now in this hotel, Naruto and Hinata would currently just be training, and Naruto's trying his best to teach Hinata about the Rasengan. However, Naruto's teaching skills are just not on point, and he's actually frustrated that he can't teach Hinata and is actually upset at himself. Hinata would then try and calm down Naruto, saying that it's going to be okay and that it's fine if he can't really teach that well. Hinata can learn it on her own pace. Naruto would then say that he thought maybe if he could try and teach her, they could actually get a little bit closer. Hinata would then say, well, why do you want to exactly get closer? I mean, we are pretty close friends already after all, right? Naruto would then say, of course we're close friends. But Hinata would then say, but what? Naruto would then say, but I just don't. A knock on the door would then be heard, and Naruto would actually use this moment to break the tension between he and Hinata, and would get up from his seat, and he would then say, never mind, I'm just gonna go open the door, as he proceeds to walk to the door. And when he proceeds to turn the knob and open the door, we would then see two men in black cloaks and red clouds on the cloaks. It is Itachi and Kisame. Itachi would request for Naruto to come with them, but Naruto quickly takes a few steps back and taps into the Kyuubi chakra. While that's happening, Hinata would then use her brand new technique that she's been trying to develop, which would be the Rasengan. And at that point, she would attempt to basically use the Rasengan in combination with her Gentle Fist. And like Boruto, yes, like Boruto, can't believe I'm comparing Hinata to Boruto, but she manages to throw the Rasengan, and the Rasengan quickly turns invisible. Kisame and Itachi are actually kind of confused by this. However, it would just strike Itachi in the face, and Itachi wouldn't expect this and is actually surprised. As that happens, Hinata would then say to Naruto that Naruto and her are going to have to work together in order to try and combat these two. And so Naruto and Hinata decide to actually work together. Naruto would basically go back and basically cast his wind-style Gale Palm Jutsu, while Hinata would basically use her Air Palm Jutsu, and in combination, the hotel room is completely destroyed. However, they are managing to push Kisame and Itachi back. Itachi and Kisame think that these kids are definitely opponents that they should not underestimate. And so Kisame would then say for Itachi to shut up, and Itachi would then proceed to just ignore Kisame, and Kisame would then say, don't worry Itachi, I got this. He would then proceed to pull out Samehada, and he would then charge at Hinata and Naruto. While this happened, Sasuke would then arrive, and he would then cast his Chidori Jutsu, and would say to Itachi that he's been waiting for this day to come. And he's going to finish Itachi right here and right now. And as he proceeds to charge at Itachi, Itachi would react to Sasuke, grab Sasuke by the arm, and pin him against the wall, basically saying that his hatred isn't strong enough. Now, Naruto and Hinata would have actually heard Sasuke coming from outside and would have basically seen the ruckus behind Kisame, because keep in mind, Kisame is right behind the door. However, Hinata would just use her Byakugan to make sure that it's Sasuke, and when she gets the confirmation that it's Sasuke, she would report this to Naruto, and so Naruto would then say to Hinata that they need to work together to beat this shark guy so that they can save Sasuke as fast as possible. Hinata couldn't agree any less, and Naruto and Hinata would then attempt to charge at Kisame. As this happens, Kisame would then get ready to slice them with Samehada, and he actually outspeeds them, and so when Naruto and Hinata are about to come into contact, and are soon about to meet their end, until Jiraiya arrives, and like in canon, would cast his Toad Mouth Jutsu. And also, just like in the original, Kisame and Itachi managed to escape from Jiraiya and retreat via Amaterasu. Shortly after this, Might Guy would then arrive and kick Jiraiya in the face, and he would proceed to take Sasuke back to the hospital so he could seek medical attention. Now, after this, Jiraiya, Naruto, and Hinata still make their way after city until eventually they would finally meet with Tsunade, and Naruto would catch her disrespecting the Hokage, in which he would come to defense of the Hokage's honor, and so Tsunade and Naruto would then have their little scuffle. Tsunade still bodies Naruto, however, Naruto is able to utilize the Rasengan a lot easier along with other techniques, so I feel like he would actually impress Tsunade here. Tsunade is impressed that he's able to utilize the Rasengan Jutsu. Literally only 2 other people can use that jutsu. Naruto would then say how that's actually incorrect, and that Kakashi can also use the jutsu along with Hinata, though Hinata's Rasengan is a little weird. And this is where I believe Hinata would finally introduce herself to Tsunade. The only reason why I don't think she would actually introduce herself like at the bar where Naruto and Tsunade were bickering. 1, Tsunade and Naruto were bickering, so she didn't want to interrupt Naruto at all. And 2, she does know who Tsunade is, and she is really, like, she is gassed that she's meeting Tsunade for the very first time. The strongest kunoichi. Tsunade would then proceed to actually see the light within Naruto, basically knowing that he will become the next Hokage, and she would then decide to join the Leaf and become the 5th Hokage. Now, if Naruto in canon with the Rasengan is able to basically convince Tsunade to become the Hokage, and this being a Naruto who's a lot stronger than that Naruto, not to mention this is Tsunade's first impression of Naruto, I believe this would actually convince Tsunade to lead the Leaf Village and become the 5th Hokage. So yeah, there's no fight with Orochimaru. Orochimaru and Kabuto would have gotten the message that Tsunade just ditched them and ditched the offer, and so Orochimaru and Kabuto proceed to head back to the hideout. So yeah, that would really wrap up the Tsunade arc very shortly, and the startup for the Sasuke Retrieval arc would actually happen as per normal. So Naruto and Sasuke would fight on top of the hospital. When Naruto and Sasuke do their iconic Chidori and Rasengan Clash, they would actually be stopped by Kakashi, and they would both hit the water towers. When Sasuke actually realizes that Naruto's Rasengan is a lot more powerful than his Chidori, he just gets very frustrated. And like in canon, Kakashi would just tie Sasuke up into a tree, and eventually the Sound Four would try and attempt to kidnap Sasuke. And eventually the Sound Four actually convince Sasuke to come along with them, and so Sasuke leaves Konoha. Now, Hinata would actually be in Sakura's position here, however, it's not going to be the same thing, as Hinata is actually a lot more useful, and when Hinata sees Sasuke in the Sound 4, she just basically dips as fast as possible. She's basically running to attempt to tell Tsunade, the new 5th Hokage, about what's going on, and the Sound 4 actually attempt to go and chase Hinata and maybe just kill her off so that there's no witness, but Sasuke actually stops them, and he says that they don't have enough time for this, and so the Sound 4, along with Sasuke, leave Konoha. We cut to where it would be early morning, and Hinata is knocking on Naruto's door, and Naruto would wake up to hear this, and he would open the door for Hinata and would ask Hinata what's wrong, and Hinata would explain the details, and Naruto would say how Kakashi left earlier to do a mission along with a lot of Jonin, so that means he and Hinata are going to have to try and get some help. The two of them would head into Tsunade's office, and when they arrive, they would see Shikamaru along with Tsunade. Tsunade would already learn about the mission, and Tsunade would already want Naruto on the team. Also, Hinata could join, and so Shikamaru now has 2 members on his team already, Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. Shikamaru, like in canon, collects Kiba, Choji, and Neji, and so they would actually get ready to head out. The team is literally the same, the team recruitment saga that is, and the only difference is that Hinata is actually joining the team. However, I feel like maybe one change that could happen is that Hinata and Neji finally interact with each other after the Chunin exams, and so Neji would actually apologize to Hinata about what happened, and Hinata would then say no need for an apology, I've gotten a lot stronger and stuff, and maybe after this mission, she and Neji could fight together and potentially train with each other, and Hinata could maybe show Neji who's really the strongest Hyuga now, and Neji's actually excited by this, and he says, sure. And with that out of the way, the team then heads out to save Sasuke. Now really, I don't see too much changing at the beginning of this arc. Like in canon, they would get bamboozled by the Sound Ninja and Jirobo would trap them, but they would find a way out a lot faster with the inclusion of Hinata and a stronger Naruto and a lot smarter Naruto, so they would probably come up with a better plan. And Choji would still fight Jirobo and beat him like in canon. Along with that, Neji would still fight Kidomaru, while Kiba and Shikamaru would eventually fight Ukon and Sakon and Taiyuya. So really, the only ones who are chasing Kimimaro and Sasuke right now are Hinata and Naruto. And Hinata and Naruto attempt to try and combat Kimimaro. Yes, Kimimaro still shows up. Now, with the inclusion of Hinata, I could see Naruto and Hinata putting in the teamwork against Kidomaru, maybe even pushing him to use even more of his power. But before that happens, Rock Lee would still arrive, and Hinata and Rock Lee would decide to stay back to fight Kimimaro and combat him, while Naruto goes on to chase Sasuke. Now, with Rock Lee's speed, along with Hinata's taijutsu style, and even Rock Lee's taijutsu style, I could see Rock Lee and Hinata, and eventually even Drunk Lee and Hinata, combining their efforts to maybe push Kimimaro into the Curse Mark Stage 1, but once he turns into the Curse Mark Stage 1, it's over for them. That is until the Sand Trio arrives and Temari and Kankuro go and assist Kiba and Shikamaru, while Gaara helps Hinata and Rock Lee. And like in canon, Kimimaro still dies due to his illness. And if I didn't make it obvious enough, the other Sound Ninjas still die. So with that out of the way, the only thing that would really change is maybe Sasuke versus Naruto. But even then, I can still see the outcome actually happening. We could just say that Sasuke goes for a cheap shot, and which would result Naruto in losing the fight. Now, Naruto versus Sasuke at the start, I could see it being a lot more closer than in canon, because at the beginning, Sasuke was just dogging Naruto. But I could see in this timeline, maybe Naruto and Sasuke are actually scrapping. But I feel like in the end, Sasuke would try and go for a cheap blow, and this would result in Naruto losing the fight. And so, Naruto would wake up in a hospital bed, and Jiraiya informs him about the Akatsuki. Now, I'm going to say Kakashi is actually in the room, and Kakashi would then say the Akatsuki are very deadly, and that Itachi just completely bodied him with no difficulty, so Kakashi is also going to have to train as well. So I'm actually going to say Jiraiya and Kakashi train Naruto for the 3 years. So Jiraiya, Naruto, and Kakashi head out for 2.5 years, and while that's going on, Hinata would actually train with Tsunade in Sakura's place, which means Hinata is going to have godly strength with her godly taijutsu skill. And this Sakura would currently just be working on her genjutsu with Kurenai over the course of the 3 years. It doesn't really matter, Sakura's irrelevant in this what if anyway. We start our story off a little bit later in the 2.5 year gap, where Naruto still looks kinda older and has a new outfit and such. He currently has been going over his training and is basically doing a casual spar with Kakashi and Jiraiya, but we see something different about this Naruto. This Naruto is currently tapped into the Kyuubi's chakra. Yes, Naruto over the course of the 2.5 year gap, with the assistance of Kakashi, managed to get a hold down on Naruto, and so Naruto is able to actually calm himself down when he's using the Kyuubi's chakra, and is able to use further stages of it. For example, he's able to tap into his 1-tailed cloak state, and his 2-tailed cloak state, and even his 3-tailed cloak state. Now, his 4-tailed cloak state he actually has tapped into, and he can only control it for like a brief amount of time, so he only saves that for a last resort. But such as the 1, 2, and 3-tailed cloaks, he's able to control them just fine. And so this Naruto has actually gotten a lot of better results than his canon counterpart did in the 2.5 year training arc. The reason why I made Naruto get such a buff with Kakashi in this training is because Naruto definitely needed a buff, as his canon counterpart literally all he did was get a giant Rasengan. So this Naruto actually has gotten results out of his training. Actual significant results. Now, speaking of Kakashi, Kakashi has actually also gotten stronger. He's able to use his Mangekyo Sharingan 4 times a day rather than his canon 2 times. And is just overall more physically capable than his canon self, due to him being able to train with Naruto and Jiraiya over the course of the 2.5 year gap. Now, for Jiraiya, I'm not going to really give him too much of a major amp. I'm just going to say he's slightly stronger than his canon self, but other than that, we don't really see any significant differences with Jiraiya over the course of the 2.5 year gap. So mainly Naruto and Kakashi benefit from this training. Now, Jiraiya still gets stronger and still does benefit, but doesn't benefit nearly as much as Kakashi and Naruto do. Now, when Naruto returns to the village with Jiraiya and Kakashi, they would immediately encounter Team Guy and Hinata. Hinata currently is relaxing with Tenten and Neji, while Rock Lee is going off doing his own thing. And when they see Naruto for the very first time, Rock Lee is pumped to see Naruto. Naruto would greet Lee, and he would then greet Neji and Tenten, and he would greet Hinata last. Hinata would get up, and seeing Naruto for the first time in 2.5 years, she just goes in for a hug, in which Naruto responds with a hug back, and Naruto actually tries to make a move, but when he actually tries to, he is immediately interrupted and stopped by Neji. Neji would push aside Naruto and question what does he think he's doing. Naruto would then attempt to push Neji aside, but Neji would actually use this to his advantage, and he would use basically the force that Naruto is using to try and put down Neji against Naruto, and basically this would throw Naruto off balance, which would allow Neji to basically throw Naruto on the ground and basically doing a successful judo throw. Naruto, after being slammed into the ground, gets back up and does a backflip, and then prepares battle with Neji. Hinata would then intercept the both of them, and she would then ask Neji why he is acting like this. Neji would then say that he has to be protective for his sister, as basically Neji and Hinata squashed the beef that they had in the Chunin exams and basically have a new bond, and now they have a brother and sister relationship. And basically Naruto, after seeing Neji trying to be all protective and stuff, he would then say, "Nah, it's cool, Hinata. Neji basically wants me to prove myself. That's fine." Naruto would then get in a fighting stance, and Neji would actually follow up with his own fighting stance, and they would get ready to battle until Kakashi then interrupts the whole thing, and he would then say, "Stop it, knock it off, we have to talk to the Hokage, it's been 2.5 years since you've actually seen her." So why doesn't Naruto stop all this bickering and go talk to Tsunade and say hi? Naruto would then say that's a good idea, and Hinata would then say, well, she does have to check up on her master anyway, as she didn't basically talk to Tsunade all day. So Hinata actually joins Naruto and Kakashi and Jiraiya in meeting with Tsunade. Naruto would then say to Neji that he's always down to fight, and he would proceed to leave to where Tsunade is. Neji would then say that he will get Naruto down and that he will surpass him. Tenten would then laugh, and she would then say, "It's kind of funny how you're fighting Naruto over Hinata, and you actually did beat the ever-living crap out of Hinata all those years ago. I guess the years really have changed you, huh, Neji?" Neji would then say, "Well, yeah. It was ever since I lost to Naruto. Naruto made me realize that destiny doesn't really make you as a person, or doesn't really define you, and that hard work can really overcome destiny. I learned that from Naruto, and because of that, I basically have changed my ways, which I do thank him for. But just because he has changed me as a person, that doesn't give him the right to basically go out with my sister, or basically my sister. And he and I will have a ferocious battle to determine if he is worthy for Hinata's love." Tenten would then laugh, and she would then say, "You're such a goofball, Neji." We then cut to Team 7, and currently they are at Tsunade's office, and Tsunade is so glad to see Naruto back and a lot more powerful. Like in canon, Kakashi would actually want to do the bell test, and Hinata and Naruto would want to take it, and they then await Kakashi at the training field, the same field they took the bell test with Sasuke. This time it's just going to be Hinata and Naruto though, but these two are a lot more powerful than their canon selves, and have better chemistry and better teamwork than that of Sakura and Naruto. So it is going to be interesting to see what is about to go down. When the bell test begins, we have Kakashi already revealing his Sharingan, indicating that he's actually not going to play around with Hinata and Naruto, and immediately hides in the forest. Luckily, Hinata uses her Byakugan to perceive where Kakashi is, and she manages to find him. She then throws a vanishing Rasengan at where Kakashi is, and Kakashi, never seeing this move in his life, would have no way of seeing this coming, so Hinata actually lands a direct hit on Kakashi, and Kakashi would actually receive decent damage. Now, due to Kakashi actually taking some decent damage from Hinata's attack, Kakashi would actually fall out of his hiding spot, which would actually reveal his location, and Naruto would then follow up from Hinata's attack by using a QB Chakra enhanced Rasengan, but this Rasengan would be power upped with Wind Release. Kakashi would then use a water style Water Dragon Jutsu by actually weaving the hand signs in a matter of seconds. Anyways, the Water Dragon would then appear, rushing at Naruto, and Naruto actually has an idea, and he tests this idea, in which his idea is to propel the Water Dragon back at Kakashi with his Wind style Jutsu. And so he uses his Wind Release Rasengan to basically propel the Water Dragon back at Kakashi, and Kakashi is seemingly doomed until Kakashi then smirks and creates his own Wind-style Rasengan that he managed to copy from Naruto and propel the Water Dragon right back at Naruto. This Naruto would actually be caught off guard from this, since he was actually overconfident, because he actually thought that he was going to finish off Kakashi and wasn't expecting that at all. And so he would take the full damage of the Water Dragon Jutsu, and he would immediately get back up, and Kakashi is impressed that Naruto has this kind of durability. But he also notes down how Naruto needs to stop underestimating opponents and getting caught off guard. Kakashi, instead of actually keeping this noted down in his mind, he would actually say this to Naruto and how he needs to work on this. However, Naruto would then say, well, Kakashi, you should work on the same thing as well, when Hinata would then appear before Kakashi, rushing at him with the 64 palm attack. However, this is in conjunction with her new strength that she actually learned how to control from Tsunade. So Kakashi would basically get caught off guard and receive 64 empowering blows from Hinata. So an off-guard Kakashi would just receive 64 devastating blows in which they would actually shut down his chakra points, and from the sheer power that Hinata was utilizing, Kakashi could barely get up. And so Naruto and Hinata actually have enough time to get up, walk to Kakashi, not even run or halt, just walk to him, take the bells, and pass the bell test. And so Team 7 actually managed to pass the bell test, and like in the original, everything would be set up for the Kazekage rescue mission. So Deidara would still capture Gaara, and Sasori would still poison Kankuro. And like in canon, Team 7 and Team Guy are then tasked to go and save Gaara. And also, like in canon, they eventually make their way to the sand and come across Lady Chiyo, and Hinata, instead of Sakura in this timeline, would be the one to heal Kankuro from his poison. Well, from the poison he has. The poison actually belongs to Sasori. But anyways, Chiyo is still impressed by Hinata's capabilities, and Chiyo then decides to stick along and actually join them in saving Gaara. And eventually, like in canon, Team 7 and Team Guy would come across the 30% Itachi and Kisame clones. However, I believe in this timeline they would actually make quick work of them, even quicker work than they did in canon. Now, the reason why I say this is because Naruto, Kakashi, and Hinata are a lot more powerful than the canon Naruto, Kakashi, and Sakura. And for Team Guy, well, Neji is a lot more powerful, as he's basically been training with Hinata from time to time after she guts off with her training with Tsunade. So basically, Neji would actually train with a stronger Hinata, and Neji would also train with Tenten, Rock Lee, and Might Guy, which would result in a much more powerful Rock Lee and Tenten, and a slightly more powerful Might Guy. They are at least above their canon counterparts, so I'm actually going to say Neji manages to beat the 30% Kisame clone, but it's actually not the full power 30% clone, it's the 30% water clone, and with the help of Rock Lee and Tenten, Neji, Rock Lee, and Tenten managed to actually defeat the other two water clones, and it's basically just Kisame, the actual 30% water clone, and Guy going at it, and Neji would then tell Might Guy to snap out of it and to just go all out and unleash his power, and so Might Guy would unleash the power of youth, releasing the 6th gate and smacking the 30% Kisame clone with an Asaku Jaku. Meanwhile, for Team 7, I'm going to say Naruto activates his 3-tailed cloak state, as he basically sees this as Itachi, someone who is a very powerful member of the Akatsuki, so they are not going to take any risk, and Naruto would just bop the 30% Itachi clone with a Rasengan enhanced by the 3-tailed cloak, and when it's revealed that this isn't the real Itachi and Kisame, like in canon, Team 7 and Team Guy still proceed on, and like in canon, now Team 7 along with Team Guy would arrive at their destinations, only this time they would arrive a lot earlier, and like in canon, the rock would be destroyed, revealing Sasori and Deidara, only this time it would actually be destroyed by Hinata rather than Sakura, and they would also reveal one more thing, and that is a Gaara who's having his Biju extracted. Remember, because they actually came to the destination a lot earlier, Gaara isn't actually dead, and his Shukaku isn't actually extracted yet. Naruto quickly activates a 3-tailed cloak and rushes towards Gaara, and actually stops the process, completely blitzing Sasori and Deidara. Then Deidara attempts to rush at Naruto to try and take Gaara's body, but Naruto would already see this coming and would slam Deidara to the ground, overwhelming Deidara with QB enhanced chakra, or overwhelming Deidara with a QB enhanced attack. Anyways, at that point, Sasori would then get out of his puppet shell and use the 3rd Kazekage puppet to grab Gaara, but Chiyo and Hinata would quickly intercept and stop Sasori, which would inevitably start up a battle with Hinata and Chiyo and Sasori. And at that point, Kakashi then tells Naruto to grab Gaara's body, and Naruto does so, and Kakashi would then tell Naruto to rush out of the closed-in area, and Naruto actually does so with Kakashi, but they would actually tell Hinata and Chiyo to come with them, but Hinata and Chiyo would then tell Naruto and Kakashi that they'll deal with Sasori, and not to worry, they can actually handle it. At that point, Naruto smirks and thanks Hinata before reverting into his base form, and rushes out of the cave with Gaara's body along with Kakashi. Deidara then chases after them, and due to Naruto not maintaining his QB chakra, Deidara would actually damage Naruto by sending him back with a miniature explosion. Kakashi would be blown back as well, but is standing way better than Naruto, as Naruto's in his base form and Sharingan Kakashi is above base Naruto, and Gaara's body would get sent back, but out of nowhere Gaara's eyes would then open, and he would send out the sand of Shukaku at Deidara and would proceed to crush his legs. Since this was a Deidara who was actually caught off guard, Deidara would receive overwhelming pain and can't even walk, and tries to crawl away and basically try and apologize to Gaara. But before Deidara can actually try and get these words off, Gaara would just instantly crush Deidara with the sand coffin for everything that he's done. And so, after Deidara has met his end, he would immediately turn around and thank Kakashi and Naruto for saving him in time, and warns Naruto and Kakashi that if he hadn't got up, Deidara would have probably caused a ruckus and would have pushed Naruto and Kakashi around, because Deidara is someone that definitely shouldn't be slept on. Kakashi would then say that they could have done something with his Mankikyo Sharingan or Naruto's QB chakra, but anyways, they then decide that they should probably wait for Sasori and Hinata and Chiyo to be done with their battle, as Naruto actually believes in Hinata and Chiyo and that they could actually do it. And they actually managed to pull through due to Hinata actually being able to locate Sasori's weak point with her Byakugan. So we will say Hinata actually uses this to her advantage and destroys the weak point, finishing Sasori off. However, they would still get the information about Sasuke like in canon, which sets up the Sasuke rescue mission. Now this arc really ends in a much more positive way, since Chiyo doesn't give her life and Gaara doesn't die. This arc just ends with Gaara thanking Team 7 and Guy, with Toby replacing Sasori and Deidara. Also, yeah, Deidara stays dead in this timeline. Now things seem very peaceful around the Leaf Village until Sai would then show up and basically cause a ruckus for Shikamaru, Choji, and Naruto. We start our story off right where we last left off, and that was with the introduction of Sai. Now Sai, like in canon, would still cause ruckus, which would alert Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji, in which Shikamaru, Choji, and Naruto would get into a little scuffle with Sai. However, as Sai and the others proceed to scuffle, it would actually be soon interrupted by Kakashi, and Kakashi would actually interrupt, saying that Sai is actually going to be their teammate and is actually going to be replacing Sasuke for the sake of the mission. Now, Naruto is actually a little bit pissed off by this because they don't need a replacement for Sasuke, but Kakashi would then say that they're going to actually need another teammate as it's actually required. So Hinata, Sai, and Naruto, along with Kakashi leading them, are tasked to go to where Orochimaru and Kabuto are, and potentially they could find Sasuke and potentially bring him back. Now, when Naruto actually hears all this go down, he would actually stop fighting Sai and would actually apologize to Sai, in which Sai would just ignore his apology and basically keep his attitude like how he does in the beginning of the saga, and this would stir up tension between Sai and Naruto. However, a key difference in this saga that will actually play out in the introduction is Hinata. Since Sakura isn't there to basically get mad at Sai and punch him, Hinata is actually going to take Sakura's place. But rather than being in completely Sakura's position and is just punching Sai and Naruto throughout half of the saga, Hinata is basically trying to talk to Sai and trying to get Sai to open up, which, like in canon what Sakura did with Sai, Sai would actually let out some information about his brother, and which would cause Sai and Hinata to bond a little. Now this isn't enough bonding to basically try and make a love triangle, don't think I'm trying to do that, but Sai and Hinata have actually become friends. Or so that's what it seems. Now, like in canon, Team 7 would eventually make it to the bridge, and Kakashi instead of Yamato would actually pretend to be Sasori, but like in canon, Kabuto actually finds out Kakashi's true identity, and then Orochimaru is then revealed, in which Team 7 has no other choice but to actually combat Orochimaru and Kabuto and reveal themselves. Hinata, Naruto, and Sai would then reveal themselves, and like in canon, Naruto would actually turn into his three-tailed cloak state, and would actually attack Orochimaru, and eventually, due to his rage and wanting for Sasuke, he actually turns into his four-tailed state. Now, Naruto, for a brief amount of time, is actually able to control this form, but over time he would eventually be consumed by Kurama, and so this would basically lead into a four-tailed berserk Naruto fight Orochimaru. Now, like in canon, Orochimaru is just overwhelmed by the four-tailed Naruto. Even the four-tailed Naruto is able to overpower 3 whole Rashomons, and so Orochimaru and Kabuto, like in canon, would retreat, and Sai would basically reveal to Team 7 that he's a part of Orochimaru and Kabuto's team by basically flying off with Orochimaru and Kabuto. And so, Kakashi and Hinata are now dealing with a four-tailed Naruto who's going on a rampage. Hinata tries to get Naruto to open up, and Naruto then hesitates for a moment because Hinata and Naruto actually share feelings with each other, a lot more of a significant relationship than that of Sakura and Naruto. So Naruto doesn't just attack Hinata, but rather would actually try and attack Hinata, but when Hinata actually tries to talk to Naruto, Naruto hesitates. And during that moment of Naruto's hesitation, Kakashi would then proceed to dash towards Four Tails Naruto and suppresses the Nine Tails with one of those suppression tags. And like in canon, Naruto would actually be suppressed, and Naruto, along with the rest of Team 7, would eventually make it to Orochimaru's hideout. But the difference here is that instead of Team 7 just running around Orochimaru's hideout until eventually finding Sasuke, they would know his exact location due to Hinata having the Byakugan, and they would immediately know which room Sasuke is in, and they would proceed to rush towards that room, and they would encounter Sasuke right off the bat. When Team 7 meets eye to eye with Sasuke for the very first time, Kakashi and Hinata are shocked, but the one who has the most shock is Naruto. Naruto can't even get the words out of his mouth. He would just stutter out, Sasuke. Sasuke would then look at Naruto, and Sasuke would then mutter under his breath, "Ugh, Naruto, it's you." At that point, Sasuke would then get up from where he was currently laying down, and he would get ready to form a Chidori, while Naruto would then proceed to form a wind-release Rasengan. Naruto and Sasuke would then clash, and Sasuke, due to actually not knowing that Naruto was using a wind-release Rasengan, he wouldn't just notice Naruto adding wind release, which would hard counter his regular Chidori, in which Sasuke would actually feel the repercussions of facing against a wind style Rasengan, with all the lightning around his Chidori just consuming his body. After Sasuke suffers the repercussions of facing off against a wind-style release Rasengan, Naruto would then kick Sasuke in the face, which would send Sasuke back, and the wall behind Sasuke would actually have a mini crater due to Naruto putting in so much force with that one kick. Sasuke, after feeling so much power from Naruto, would actually understand and indicate how powerful he really is, and so he would actually just stop holding back and would proceed to activate his 3-Tomo Sharingan. Sasuke would then dash at Naruto, and base Naruto compared to Sharingan Sasuke isn't even a close match, and it's actually in Sasuke's favor. So when Sasuke actually dashes towards Naruto, Naruto would only see Sasuke as a blur, and Sasuke would just hit Naruto with a barrage of taijutsu combos. Naruto would be pushed back, and Naruto would have no other choice but to activate his one-tailed cloak. Naruto would then power up using even more of Kurama's power and would rush at this Sasuke. Now Sharingan Sasuke and One-Tailed Cloak Naruto are actually relative in speed. However, Naruto decides to kick it up a notch and activate his Two-Tailed Cloak, which actually overpowers and pushes 3-Tomo Sasuke. Sasuke would then understand how powerful Naruto has truly gotten, and he decides to stop holding back and immediately just goes into his Curse Mark Stage 1. Now this Curse Mark Stage 1 Sasuke is actually above Two-Tailed Cloak Naruto, so I'm just going to have Sasuke completely outclass this Naruto and send him flying and just bullying him with lightning release. However, then Naruto decides to kick it up a notch and activate his 3-Tailed Cloak state. Now 3-Tailed Naruto is just completely above this Curse Mark 1 Sasuke, and so Sasuke has no other choice but to activate his second stage. And so Naruto then activates his Curse Mark Stage 2, and Curse Mark Stage 2 Sasuke versus 3-Tailed Naruto would then happen. And these two are just going blow for blow. But all of this beating up that they're doing on each other would come to an end when Sasuke actually forms a Chidori and Naruto forms a Rasengan. Naruto then rushes at Sasuke while Sasuke rushes at Naruto, and they then have a Chidori Rasengan clash. Now with this clash, they actually just completely destroy Orochimaru's hideout from the sheer power that they're actually producing. And Hinata and Kakashi are actually blown back from this, along with Sai, Orochimaru, and Kabuto, but eventually Sasuke and Naruto would stop their clash, and it would actually be revealed that they actually negated each other completely. Naruto didn't win, but neither did Sasuke, and Sasuke and Naruto would actually suffer repercussions from this, and they would actually suffer great damage from their arms, or the arms that they're actually doing their trademark moves. Now after this, Sasuke would then get ready to use a Kirin just to finish everyone off, but Orochimaru would then stop Sasuke, as Orochimaru would then say how it's been enough. And so Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Sasuke then leave, and Team 7, and this includes Sai, they would actually just stay there and defeat, and Sai would actually join Team 7 and would actually become a good guy like in canon. And so this would conclude the Sasuke rest. Although Naruto didn't win or lose, he kind of feels more defeated. Kakashi would actually cheer up Naruto by giving him the idea of maybe creating a brand new wind-style jutsu. Now, due to Naruto actually already knowing that he has a wind-style chakra nature, and he's been training in the arts of wind-style with the Rasengan for like years now, Naruto would still learn the Rasen Shuriken, but he would learn it even easier and even faster, because Naruto has actually already used the wind-style incorporated with his Rasengan jutsu for many times. Basically, any variation of the Rasengan, Naruto can just incorporate it with Wind Release. So the Giant Rasengan, the Vermilion Rasengan, the regular Rasengan, any kind of Rasengan really, the Big Ball Rasengan, it can all be incorporated with the Wind Style release that Naruto has. So I will say Naruto learns the Rasen Shuriken around the same time that they get the news about Asuma's death. Now, yes, Asuma still dies in the first part of Hidan, and Kakuzu versus Shikamaru's fight would still play out as per normal since Naruto doesn't really change this part of the story, but rather, changes start to come in once Team 10 gets ready to head out to try and avenge Asuma and combat Hidan and Kakuzu by themselves. Tsunade still stops them like in canon, but the only thing that actually changes here is, rather than Kakashi being the one to lead them, it's Kakashi and Naruto. And so, like in canon, Team 10 along with Kakashi and this time Naruto, they would go out and actually plan on attacking Hidan and Kakuzu by surprise. Now, when Hidan and Kakuzu actually attempt to head to the leaf, they would be stopped by Shikamaru, and like in canon, they would still be bamboozled. But rather than Kakashi getting stabbed by Kakashi's Raikiri, it's actually going to end up a lot worse for Kakuzu. Kakuzu would actually be bamboozled by Naruto, who actually has a Rasen Shuriken ready to be just thrown at. And so rather Kakuzu meeting a Raikiri through his chest, he would meet a Rasen Shuriken that literally obliterates all of his hearts and obliterates them on a cellular level, and Kakuzu is just killed off easily. Now, due to Kakuzu actually being caught off guard by the Rasen Shuriken, he actually meets his end a lot earlier, and Hidan seeing Kakuzu, the strongest of the duo, just go down like that, he gets all shooken up. However, Shikamaru would then tell Team 10 along with Kakashi and Naruto that he's got this, and like in canon, Shikamaru then brings Hidan to the forest. And like in canon, he would then avenge Asuma by killing Hidan like how he did in canon, and this arc would eventually just end with Team 10 and Kakashi and Naruto revealed to be alive and actually successfully defeating the Akatsuki duo. Now, with this arc ending a lot shorter, we would actually get Jiraiya leaving off to the village and Sasuke planning on killing Orochimaru. Start our story off with Sasuke currently fighting Orochimaru, and he actually manages to kill him and absorb him. While that's going down, Jiraiya would make his way to the Rain Village, and I decided to cover both of these arcs at once since they take place relatively at the same time. So like in canon, Sasuke would recruit the members of Team Hebi and would head out to where Itachi is, while Jiraiya goes out to the Rain Village for info on Pain, and we actually don't get Sasuke versus Deidara due to Deidara already being dead. Rather, we would just get Sasuke and Team Hebi arriving at the Uchiha hideout a lot earlier. Kisame lets Sasuke through and holds back the rest of Team 7, and eventually Sasuke would meet with Itachi, which would lead into their battle, and then this would be around the same time where Jiraiya would actually combat Pain in his Sage mode, and we would still get Naruto getting the gift from Itachi, which would actually be the crow, which would come into play later on. That still happens, I just wanted to clarify that. Now, this would eventually lead into Jiraiya and Itachi's death, along with Sasuke actually being taken in by Tobi and eventually would be manipulated into joining Team Taka, and now Sasuke has the goal of destroying the Leaf Village. Now, this would then lead up into the Pain arc, in which Naruto would find out about Jiraiya's death like in canon, and he would still go through that little depressing phase until Iruku's actually going to be the one to cheer him up, and would still undergo the training of Sage mode. At around this time, the Six Paths of Pain along with Konan would actually enter the village or near the village, and eventually at around this point, Pain would actually start causing his terror on the village, and the Leaf Village has no other choice but to try and attempt to combat the Six Paths of Pain and Konan. And like in canon, Kakashi would still fight the Diva Path, however it wouldn't go very well for him even with the assistance of Choji and Choza, and with the actual added assistance of Hinata. Since Hinata is in this timeline and it's a lot more relevant, I feel like Kakashi would actually be assisted and backed up by his student Hinata. So Hinata and Kakashi would try their best to try and combat the Asura Path and the Diva Path, and even Choji and Choza would try and assist Hinata and Kakashi, but like in canon, this actually still fails, and the Asura Path and the Diva Path are just too much for the four of them. Now, like in canon, Kakashi would actually be in a position where Pain can just throw a bunch of nails at him, and like in canon, Kakashi would actually succumb to these nails, and Choji and Choza and Hinata are saddened by the sensei's death, but they have no time for tears as Pain then gets ready to use his chaotic Shenra Tensei, and when he blows everything back, Hinata, Choji, and Choza are actually alive thanks to the assistance of Tsunade, but Tsunade actually drained a lot of her chakra from this, and now Tsunade is standing right in front of the Six Paths of Pain with nearly no chakra. All hope is lost until bam, Naruto then arrives on the scene, and when he senses Kakashi's sensei not around the area, he would then understand that he has actually passed away, and Naruto, now understanding that his father and his sensei have both died from this man, Naruto is gonna give Pain no mercy, and out of sheer rage, Naruto just can't control himself, and out of sheer rage activates his six-tailed version 2 cloak state. And so, this is where Naruto actually has the bones around him, and he would actually charge at the 6 paths of pain, and with his sheer power and speed, he would just obliterate all the paths of pain one by one until it's eventually the Diva path and six-tailed Naruto fighting each other. And due to Naruto just pushing Pain a lot more than in canon, Pain would have no other choice but to use his Chibaku Tensei, and this is when Naruto gets sucked up, and like in canon, he would actually meet Minato for the very first time, and like in canon, he would actually escape the Chibaku Tensei. So really, the Pain fight is just Naruto actually beating Pain a lot faster and a lot easier than in canon, due to six-tailed Naruto appearing right off from the bat, and this Naruto is a lot more powerful than his canon self, so this six-tailed Naruto overall is a lot more powerful than the canon six-tailed Naruto, which is why he was able to defeat the Paths of Pain even easier than his canon self and even easier than the canon Sage Mode Naruto. But anyways, like in canon, Naruto would actually use his Sage Mode against Pain, and since this Pain is a lot more weakened than the canon Pain due to this Pain actually having to deal with a much more powerful six-tailed Naruto, Pain would eventually succumb to Naruto. However, in this timeline, it would happen a lot quicker. Now, I believe Naruto with his Sage Mode would still basically pierce himself with the chakra rods to try and get Nagato's location, and like in canon, he would talk no jutsu, which would eventually lead into Nagato casting the Ren Rebirth Jutsu, and this would revive everyone, including Kakashi. As Kakashi's life is being brought back, he would still be talking to the White Fang, as basically he was talking to him while he was dead, and he's basically starting to fade away from his conversation with the White Fang or his dad due to his life being brought back. And as Kakashi's life is being brought back, Sakumo would then say how he's very proud of Kakashi and he needs to keep on moving forward along with raising his son to the best of his abilities, and that's all he can really do for now. Kakashi would then say goodbye to his dad one last time before being brought back to life. Naruto would be looked at as a hero, Hinata wouldn't nearly die or basically confess her love, and this would conclude the Pain Saga. However, the other arcs would still stir up and actually be set up like in canon. So for example, the Killer Bee vs. Taka fight still plays out, which sets up the 5 Kage Summit Saga. Now, the 5 Kage Summit arc for the most part kind of stays as per normal, with Sasuke actually almost beating the Raikage until Gaara then interferes, and Sasuke and Tobi would eventually retreat and they would actually successfully kill Danzo, and then Team 7 would actually meet up with Sasuke for the very first time in a while. Now, instead of Sakura actually being the one to try and kill Sasuke, it's Hinata, and Hinata actually tries to have a full-blown fight with Sasuke. Now, rather being a Sakura and basically knocking out all of her teammates, I'm going to say Hinata tells the rest of her teammates, to basically the party that's looking for Sasuke, that Sasuke is in a different direction, where that team would basically go out to a different direction where Hinata is going, which would leave Hinata all by herself, where Hinata can actually face off against Sasuke. Now, this Sasuke would actually be at a massive disadvantage due to him being massively drained from fighting all the Kage level opponents. But Sasuke barely manages to basically hold his own. However, he still manages to hold his own, but Hinata still doesn't give in and is basically catching Sasuke off guard with attacks like the 64 palms and using it in conjunction with her powerful strength, along with the Vanishing Rasengan, which would definitely catch someone like Sasuke off guard, as Sasuke has never seen this technique before, and overall Sasuke is having trouble against Hinata. That is until he then activates his Susanoo and attempts to basically shoot a Susanoo arrow right through Hinata. Kakashi would actually come in at the last minute with a Kamui, saving Hinata's life, and at that point Sasuke would then shoot another Susanoo arrow at Kakashi, but Kakashi would then react to that Susanoo arrow with a Kamui once again. Sasuke would then form a Chidori, and he would then say that he's going to kill Hinata no matter what, to basically ruin Naruto's life, and would proceed to dash past Kakashi and towards Hinata with a Chidori and getting ready to finish her off, but then Naruto comes in with the save and punches Sasuke away from Hinata, and as this happens, Naruto would then let out some of the Kurama's chakra, and would then say to Sasuke, "Don't you dare lay a finger on her." At that point, Naruto and Sasuke would then look at each other face to face, and like in canon, Naruto and Sasuke would actually have the Rasengan and Chidori clash. Naruto and Sasuke would actually have a little bit of a fight right after this clash, but really this arc still concludes like its canon counterpart, and that being with Sasuke and Tobi retreating, and with Tobi actually leaving after declaring the 4th Great Ninja War. Naruto, Kakashi, and Hinata then leave the 5 Kage Summit area, and that would conclude the 5 Kage Summit. And now we actually are introduced into the very big arc, the 4th Great Ninja War. So we start our story off with the aftermath of Team 7 encountering Sasuke, and Naruto knows that he must get far more powerful if he wants to basically catch up with Sasuke, and this would basically set up the stuff with KCM Naruto. I'm going to say here, due to Hinata and Naruto's very close relationship, they actually hook up before Naruto heads out to go and train. So yeah, we have Naruto and Hinata who are actually together earlier in this timeline, and it makes sense here because of how much they really grew together. Neji actually isn't going to be very much protective here because Naruto did save the village, not to mention save Hinata against Sasuke, so it's pretty much the least that he can do, and plus Neji knows that Naruto outclasses him in quite literally every single way. So pretty much Neji is just gonna cuck down for now, and Naruto and Hinata are actually together. Now as for B versus Kisame, this goes down about the same, and as for Sasuke, he actually achieves his EMS finally. Now nothing really changes with the setup. Naruto still fights Kurama and takes chakra from him, granting himself the KCM mode. And for protection, just in case if any of the Akatsuki members try to encounter Naruto, for protection he has Kakashi and Hinata and B and the Intel Ninja to go along with him. Like in canon, Kisame would be hiding inside of Samehada, and this would then be revealed, and my guy would then make quick work of him like in canon. Now because of Kisame not being trapped with wood rather than just being surrounded, since Yamato is not actually going along in this timeline, so they just kind of like hold Kisame down until Kisame then catches them all off guard, and he basically surrounds himself in a water prison, and he then summons a bunch of sharks, only this time he uses the sharks to then attack Naruto and his group as a distraction so he can actually escape. And because of Kisame's overwhelming speed advantage inside of the water, Kisame actually escapes. And so with this, they actually don't get the intel from Kisame like in canon. However, in this timeline, Kisame is actually alive. Kisame would then give the info to Obito, and at that point, Obito and Kisame and Kabuto would actually go ahead and join alliances, and I feel like Obito would actually bring Kisame along with him to visit Kabuto, and at that point, Kabuto would then reveal Madara, and even Kisame is a little shocked that this is the real deal, and like in canon, Obito and Kabuto would decide to work together. So now, rather having the really long reanimation battles, I'm just going to add in some new ones to make the war arc a little bit more enjoyable. Now the Akatsuki, the reanimated Kage, and the Jinchuriki are still going to be fighting, and still going to be reanimated like in canon, since they're basically like the most powerful reanimations, or at least the most relevant. However, I'm going to be adding in some new ones, such as Konan, and as for a few others that remain in the war arc still, like Hiyashi Hyuga, Hanzo, and the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, Kinkaku and Ginkaku, and lastly Kimimaru. Another addition I'm going to be adding in is Sakumo Hatake, and you'll see why. So, like in canon, Naruto and Killer Bee would attempt to enter the war, but Naruto would have a confrontation with the Raikage, and he still has that moment of outspeeding the 4th. We then cut to Team Kakashi's perspective, where Kakashi, Hinata, Rock Lee, and Might Guy are fighting the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. However, someone else would be along with the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, and it would then be revealed to be Sakumo Hatake. At that point, Kakashi and Sakumo would then have a heartfelt battle, and Kakashi basically says how he trained Naruto and raised him right, and how Sakumo would be really proud to see his grandson. At that point, Kakashi would then blitz towards Sakumo Hatake and then pierce his chest with the Raikiri, eliminating him off the battlefield. At that point, the sealing team would then come in and seal Sakumo, and Sakumo would then say, "Kakashi, I was watching you from all the way up there. I am proud of you." Kakashi at that point would then let out some tears, activating his MS out of rage. At that point, he then turns to the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, and like in canon, he fights the 7 Ninja Swordsmen for a straight 24 hours, eliminating Zabuza and Haku like how he does in canon. Now, in this timeline, I believe Konan would actually be with Nagato along with Itachi, and Naruto and Killer Bee would have no other choice but to fight the 3 of them, and so they're stuck in a 3v2. If it wasn't already hard enough, because like in canon, Naruto gets ragdolled by Itachi and Nagato, same thing with Killer Bee, only this time Konan is there to basically do some extra damage. However, like in canon, Itachi is then released from the Edo Tensei. He would then use Amaterasu on Nagato and then blitz him with the Totsuka Blade, and at that point, Konan would then be blitzed with the Totsuka Blade to her chest as well. And so Nagato and Konan would then be sealed, and at that point, Itachi would go ahead and go help Sasuke combat Kabuto. Now as for Naruto and Killer Bee, they still combat the Jinchuriki, and Naruto and Killer Bee actually do a lot better than they do in canon due to Naruto's extra strength. Naruto, like in canon, would still succumb to the Four Tails, and at that point he would still activate KCM2, where he would just body slam all the Biju, and at that point him, along with Killer Bee, along with Kakashi and Guy, and even Hinata joining the battle a lot earlier, decide to take on Obito and to try and figure out who he really is, because he keeps on claiming that he's Madara, even though they all know that's bullshit. So at that point, with a combination of Hinata's Byakugan making sure that Obito's weak spots are spotted, so that Hinata can then inform the group about his weak spots, so the group can try and attack them there. So at that point, Kakashi, like in canon, would eventually figure out that Obito and him are connected to the same space, and this leads into Naruto slamming a Rasengan inside of Obito's mask, and this reveals Obito. Like in canon, Obito and Kakashi would basically head into the Kamui dimension right after launching their Ten Tails attack. Basically, the Ten Tails portion of the story still happens as per normal, with Madara arriving and bullying KCM2 Naruto and Killer Bee. The reason why this happens as per normal is because I don't really see Hinata's inclusion along with this Naruto really having any more trouble than they did like in canon, and this timeline Madara is just gonna have to push himself more than he did in canon, but either way Madara still scales above Naruto, so this doesn't really change much, and this would still lead into Naruto and Sasuke having to work together, and this would eventually lead into Jubito, and Jubito would still fight the 4 reanimated Kage and Sasuke and Naruto, and like in canon, Naruto still beats Jubito and basically frees him from all the pain. Now as that's happening, Might Guy is actually dealing with the likes of Kisame, since Kisame was actually hiding in the shadows, and eventually he decided to arrive on the battlefield, and Guy and Kisame would have one last scrap. Kisame would go with his full power attack, while Guy would go with his full power 7th gate, and at this point, it would then be revealed that Guy actually killed Kisame. Now like I said before, most of the events would play out as per normal, and Jubidara would then be revealed to the audience. Sasuke and Naruto would currently be dead, and Naruto is currently being healed by Hinata, the best of her abilities, and Sasuke would get the same treatment, only this time it would be with Karin. However, this would be pretty much useless since Naruto and Sasuke have been dead for a long time, and their healing for a long time ago wasn't really working. So Sasuke and Naruto are just standing there dead, and Hinata and Karin are just crying their eyes out, seeing that there might be no chance of them winning this war. At that point, Hinata would activate her Byakugo seal and charge head into battle, trying to avenge her fallen boyfriend. At that point, she would then drop down off of Gaara's sand cloud, and she would then activate her Gentle Step Twin Lion Fist, only this time it's actually purple rather than blue, indicating that it's actually purple lightning and not blue lightning, and she tries her best to try and tag Jubidara, but it's really to no avail, and Jubidara is just kind of weaving her, bobbing and weaving, and basically kicking her around. However, Hinata is actually taking all of Jubidara's attacks, and she can't actually die. However, when Jubidara starts relentlessly bullying Hinata, she can actually feel a little bit of pain. However, as she's about to be hit with Madara's final attack, Might Guy would come in out of nowhere with the 7th gate, launching a Hirudoya in his face, blasting him away, and at that point, Madara and Might Guy would have their battle with the inclusion of Hinata, Gaara, Minato, and Kakashi. Eventually, Might Guy would then fall, and this time Naruto actually drops down and doesn't heal Might Guy, because Might Guy is actually going to stay dead this time. Definitely shouldn't have gotten that kind of power to basically reverse the effects of the 8th gate, because the 8th gate should just be an instant death jutsu. So I'm basically going to have it like that. Even when Naruto uses his best healing powers, it doesn't work at all. So yeah, Might Guy stays dead, and this upsets Naruto because Kakashi and Might Guy cared about each other, and Naruto cares about Kakashi and actually did kind of like Rock Lee along with Might Guy himself, so inherently Naruto's just going to be upset by this, and Naruto and Sasuke would then bully One-Eyed Renegon Madara, and they would then fight Two-Eyed Renegon Madara, and they would still beat him in the process. Like in canon, Black Zetsu still betrays him, and Kaguya is then born, and with the combination of all Team 7's members along with Obito, and this time Obito doesn't give Kakashi this time instead of Obito giving him the 6th path powers, he would actually just give Kakashi his Sharingan back since he believes he earned it, and at that point Kakashi would then use Kamui to react to Kaguya, and basically Kamui one of Kaguya's hands away, which basically saves Hinata in the process. At that point, Hinata sees another Kaguya palm palm coming at her, and in reaction to this, she then casts her twin gentle step lion fist technique and shooting a lion tiger, basically nullifying Kaguya's hand to be ineffective. At that point, with the combination of all of Team 7's members, they defeat Kaguya and seal her away, and Naruto and Sasuke would still have their final battle. So there we go, that's the end of Shippuden. Naruto and Hinata still get married and Boruto is still born. Into the actual story, I would very much like to establish this new version of Boruto, since he would be kinda different from his canon self in this version. Since instead of being a fat, sweaty, dumb loser, he's actually going to be a lot more calmer and understanding, and overall a lot more likable, because whenever Naruto is out being a Hokage, Kakashi is actually going to be around to train Boruto. Now, the reason why I do think Boruto and Kakashi would train with each other is because, one, Kakashi is Naruto's grandfather, essentially, and Kakashi would be visiting his residence and talking to Boruto, and eventually this would lead into Boruto being under Kakashi's wing, and it's for the same reasons that Boruto went under Sasuke's wing. One, he thinks he's cool, and two, he hates Naruto and he thinks he's a fat loser, so he wants to train to actually prove himself. Kakashi could also see potential in Boruto, which for the sake of the video, we'll say he does. And so Boruto would be trained under the likes of Kakashi, and this would mean Boruto would at least scale above his canon self, since by the time we get to that point, he would be a lot more stronger because he would be training a lot more with someone like Kakashi. But that's really in the near future. Let's focus on the current time and where we are at. Boruto would be about 6 when Kakashi decides to take him as his pupil, and this Kakashi still has his Sharingan, if you guys didn't remember, which is just a quick side note. But anyways, Kakashi would begin to train Boruto like how he trained Naruto, and we do know that Boruto's nature affinities are water, lightning, and wind, which will still be present here, but we will say when Kakashi helps Boruto discover those nature affinities, Boruto at first would discover lightning. Kakashi would teach him the basics on how to utilize these affinities, and this gives Kakashi a flashback to when he used to train Naruto, and it's a subtle change but a nice little reminiscing moment for the GOAT Kakashi. Now Boruto here I do believe would eventually talk to Kakashi and question why his dad is never around and stuff, which Kakashi answers how Naruto is the leader of his village and has a lot of responsibility, and in this timeline, since one, Boruto is a lot younger and doesn't have as much of a grudge against his father as his older self, and Kakashi being a much more intelligent person and being a very honest person as well, I feel like Boruto would actually understand that his dad has stuff to do, and instead of being a spurg about the situation, he would actually understand and acknowledge what his dad is doing for the village, and he would manage to mature from this. So Boruto doesn't have to be a little bitch to Naruto and around everyone, but rather a calm, collected, and powerful ninja who would just want to achieve strength, similar to someone like Minato or even Kakashi himself. And I do feel like Boruto would want to be like Kakashi since, you know, he's kind of grown on him. And since Naruto isn't really around for someone for Boruto to look up to, it's really Kakashi left. And I do feel like Boruto would want to look up to Kakashi, and I do feel like instead of, you know, wanting to be Hokage, I still feel like he would have the same motives as his canon self. And what I mean by that is the specific motive to actually prove himself to not just be looked at the Hokage's son, but rather a powerful ninja in his own right, which I do feel like is good, but again, Boruto's other qualities were just awful, so I couldn't really resonate with that. But this more mature Boruto I can resonate with. Now with that being said, this Boruto would still have that similar motive, and he and Kakashi would just keep on training. This would give the copy ninja deja vu as well, since this reminds him of the moment where Naruto established to become Hokage, but it's different at the same time since Boruto doesn't want to be the Hokage, but rather gain respect, and again, this is a little thing to show that Boruto is not like Naruto. Kakashi here would still have his purple lightning, but with his Sharingan making him an even deadlier opponent. Now Boruto would still have all of his canon jutsu, but he would also have an addition of being able to generate lightning from his palms by combining, you know, that Hyuga Taijutsu with his lightning chakra affinity. Now let's move a little forward where the Shin Saga would start, and this time Kakashi and Boruto would be training, and when all of a sudden they would hear a sudden attack occur not too far from them, and the two rush and they see Shin fighting the likes of Sarada and Chocho. Kakashi would quickly intercept a blow that seemingly was about to kill Sarada, while Boruto would make Shadow Clones and utilize his wind style Gale Palm to boost him towards Shin and hit the Walmart Uchiha with a palm strike and follow up with generating lightning from his pawns to electrocute him. Shin would be completely fine and note how the boy caught him by surprise, and he's warning him and Kakashi to stand down or he's not going to be playing nice anymore. Kakashi and Boruto both smirk as they prepare to charge at Shin, with Kakashi already having a Sharingan out. He already put it out before he even met Shin because he knew there was something dangerous going on. But in the nick of time, as Kakashi and Boruto are getting ready to fight, Naruto appears and says how he can take care of things, and Boruto is a little hesitant, but Boruto remembers what Kakashi said to him years ago, and Boruto simply accepts his father's help but he promises that he will cover his back. They prepare to face Shin, and this leads into Shin facing Naruto, Boruto, and Kakashi, but losing and then retreating, and as they head out, they would be suddenly attacked by Shin again. But thanks to Kakashi having his Sharingan out and being aware of things around him, he would be able to perceive the magnets in time and use a large Kamui vortex to suck in most of the magnets. Keep in mind I said most and not all of them, because the rest that wouldn't be sucked into the Kamui would be coming at Naruto, but luckily Naruto would just use Kurama to cover the magnets, or covering the ninja from the magnets, my bad. But anyways, Sasuke would then face down Shin, while Kakashi would actually go down to try and help Sasuke face Shin, while Naruto and Boruto would be protecting the others. And this would nicely lead into Sakura arriving and punching Shin into the stomach, and then Team 7 reuniting to take down Shin, with the mentor being here this time. As we all know, this leads into Sarada seemingly being captured by Shin, but Sakura at the last second pushing Sarada away, and this leads into Sakura being captured, and this would lead into the group then heading out to go and rescue Sakura. Now, after this portion, things start really playing out similar to the canonical version of events, including Sarada thinking Karin's her mom, which, let's just admit, we all hated that, but Boruto and Kakashi would just be extra people hating on Sasuke for this, or seemingly, because it's not actually true in the end. But anyways, this would still lead into the final battle against Shin, with Sakura versus Shin occurring, and Kakashi, Sasuke, and Naruto and Boruto taking down the Shin goons, and Sarada still coming in and getting her Sharingan. She would use her Sharingan against Shin, and in the end, Shin would still be defeated by Team 7, Boruto, and Sarada, and Chocho just being there. But yeah, after this arc, we see how Sakura, Sasuke, and Sarada all reunite, and they're a lot more of a happier family than before, and this leads into Naruto and Boruto kind of looking at them and then looking at each other. And this is a little subtle moment that both characters do believe that they can actually take a thing from Sasuke and Sakura's book and actually get along more. Boruto would say to Naruto how he doesn't really talk to him too much, and Naruto says that he hasn't been, the best of fathers, but in the end, Boruto and Naruto are still going to be out for each other and still love each other in the end. So yeah, it's a nice little moment here, especially since this is just a lot better than the canon version of Boruto, because there's no, I hate my dad type beat. And, it's a lot more fixed here, and I honestly really like that. Now, the other arcs in Boruto, I really don't care about, like Bootleg Yagura and like Target version of Kisame. I don't care about that. I'm sorry, I really don't care. So we're just going to skip past that and head into the Boruto movie. Now, the start of the movie would be played out similar to in canon, and by the beginning, I do mean the Killer Bee and Sasuke portion of the story. And things are kind of the same up until the Chunin exams roll around, besides, Boruto's personality change. And also, before the Chunin exams, Kakashi, in preparation for the exams, would help Boruto learn the Rasengan, which at first Boruto wouldn't be able to get down, but that's just because he isn't aware of his vanishing Rasengan yet. Boruto wouldn't be using the ninja tools here since he has no reason to, and nicely declined the offer. With this happening, there will be no fat loser watching with his trash tools, and we can have a legit Chunin exams. And because of this Boruto being a lot more powerful than his canon self, he isn't going to get jobbed by people like Shikamaru's son or Killer Bee's son. Alright, let's just get into the exam. The first part of the exams would play out similar to in canon, and the second exam would be a little bit more difficult for Boruto and the rest of his team. However, I do feel like he would still come out on top. We'll just say thanks to Boruto's physical stats being far better than his canon self, and also having a new ability, aka the lightning clones, he actually catches the trio off guard, and this allows Sarada, Mizuki, and Boruto to go in for a full team attack, and they would defeat the Mist Ninja and collect the flags. This would then lead into the final rounds of the Chunin exams, and Boruto versus Killer Bee's son, which I do feel like Boruto would win via blitzing him with a lightning shuriken that blows up in his face and electrocutes him, leaving him immobile. Next would be Shikadai versus Boruto, which is where Boruto would reveal a new strategy to defeat him, which isn't cheating this time. He would make 3 clones, and one of those clones makes a water wall jutsu, while the 2 other clones use a Gale Palm to enhance the water wall into a spiraling sea, which forces Shikadai to move away, and he would then attempt shadow possession on Boruto, and he seemingly catches him, but it seems like he only caught the 3 clones. Where's the real Boruto? Well, he's actually in the air, and he managed to get up there while the spiraling wave of water distracted Shikadai. That Boruto in the air would then make 2 other clones mid-air to boost him to Shikadai, and then slam him with a kick to the head, which leads into Shikadai being unconscious and Boruto winning the match. And instead of Naruto dropping down to say that Boruto is disqualified, he drops down to congratulate Boruto on winning his second round and to keep on winning and win it home for him. And with that being said, Naruto and Boruto would then do a little, little bro fist, you know what I'm saying? And then this would lead into the Chunin exams being abruptly interrupted by Momoshiki. This part of the story plays out pretty similar, with Boruto getting his outfit this time destroyed by trying to defend his dad, and in the end, Naruto would be kidnapped, and this would lead into the 5 Kage, Sasuke, Boruto, and Kakashi this time, heading out to rescue him. Now in this timeline, Kakashi would assist the 5 Kage in taking down base Momoshiki and then Kinshiki, or whichever order it was, but regardless, Momoshiki would fuse with Kinshiki and bop the 5 Kage and Kakashi, but Kakashi would actually be surviving barely here and actually be conscious, and Boruto would be watching, hoping his dad is alright, and this would lead into Sasuke and Naruto versus Momoshiki, and then eventually, yes, you guessed it, Boruto versus Momoshiki, but this time Kakashi would have just recovered enough chakra to actually join Boruto in the fight, and so it would be a 2v1, Boruto and Kakashi against Momoshiki. Kakashi and Boruto setting up combos with one another, and when Boruto clones are getting harmed by Momoshiki, Momoshiki would get tagged by lightning since it was a lightning clone, and Momoshiki would then say screw it, and this would lead into the Momoshiki-Boruto clash that's pretty iconic, and Kakashi would use his last bit of chakra to Kamui Momoshiki's arm, which distracts the Otsutsuki, allowing Boruto to atomize him completely without a struggle. And so this concludes the Momoshiki arc and part 9 of What If Kakashi Adopted Naruto.